My dad has treated me like crap my entire life simply because he was convinced that I was not actually his biological son, as he claimed that my mom cheated on him before I was born. But now, 19 years later, after taking a DNA test, it is proven once and for all that my dad is actually my dad, as this now shatters and ruins my dad's perspective of me, and has also finally made him realize that the way he treated me growing up was awful, toxic, and completely unnecessary. But now that the dust is settled, he's trying to reach back out to be like, oh, let's try again, I want to make it up to you, even though my entire childhood was met with hostility and anger towards something I had nothing to do with, and also about something that literally wasn't even true. But now that I've moved out and I live with my friend's family, I'm in a situation where I don't know if I should reach out again, because this is just incredibly hard to handle and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm a 19-year-old male and I'm the youngest kid in my family. My parents had 6 kids before me, ages between like 30 and 22, and for whatever reason, from before I was even born, my dad believed my mom had cheated and I was the other guy's kid. He refused to pay for anything pregnancy or baby related for me, all before I was born. And after he told my mom that it was on her to pay my way, I guess that's when she suggested a DNA test when I was a newborn, but he literally refused to do one with his money, so it just didn't happen until like a couple of years ago. My dad was a really involved and loving father to my siblings. In fact, they all have really great memories of him when they were growing up. He could be strict at times, but they knew they were loved, and he made sure that he also gave them experiences that they would always remember. For example, like a Disney trip one year that lasted 10 days, and a camping experience where he rented these really nice tents and took my siblings with him for a few days at a time. He showed up to their games and their recitals, and he took days off of work to take care of them when they were sick once mom went back to work. And for reference, he and mom split the days with my siblings. He would get them takeout from their favorite places as a surprise, and if any of them had trouble in school, he was there right away, always. But guess what? I didn't have that kind of parent. He didn't take me to Disney World with my siblings. He didn't take me camping with them either. And he also never took me shopping with him at any time. He didn't bring me home takeout when he got it from my other siblings. In fact, he didn't even know the kind of takeout that I liked. I remember being sick with the flu one time, and my mom was in the hospital after a surgery. My choice was either to stay home and take care of myself or just go to school. And for the record, at the time I was like maybe 11 years old. So I went to school, and you know what? A family member had to pick me up and drop me off at home on my way, since dad refused to do anything for me. My dad would curse at me and tell me to go away whenever I tried to be close to him. And honestly, my mom let it happen. Her and my dad had a few rough years, but their marriage went back to being loving, and mom sacrificed me to keep it that way. She didn't push for the DNA test despite knowing I was dad's kid. She didn't stand up for me and insist that I should be treated the same or nothing. One time I broke down and cried to her about how I was treated, and she told me she knew and she loved me, and that she never cheated, and that yes, I was dad's kid. She told me he didn't believe I was, but she said that she knew. So I asked her to please do something, but all she said was that she couldn't. Well, fast forward to around 2 years ago, and I decided to find out once and for all. So I did one of those online kits and convinced my oldest sibling to do one too. And guess what? It showed that we're full siblings. And as you can probably guess, my dad did the test as well, and yeah, he is absolutely my dad. It took a few weeks for my dad and my mom to talk it out, and in that time I moved in with my friend's family so I wouldn't be with my parents anymore. I never went back home, but my dad has apologized and has asked for the chance to make it up to me. But he literally can't, and I don't want to be told over and over that how he treated me was understandable simply because he didn't think that I was his. I don't want my mom to think it's all good that she stayed and allowed me to be treated that way either. But my siblings are ruthlessly defending our parents, and they're telling me to let it go and just reconcile. They say all the family conflict is down to me, and it's about time I grow up and learn how to accept flaws in other people. They dismiss every question I ask or point that I make to try and open their eyes. I haven't been to therapy yet, and I can't afford it right now, but I'm barely making enough to survive, to be completely honest. So I really need some advice right now on what to do, because right now I feel completely lost. Oh my god, your whole family sucks. This isn't just your dad. Your mom sucks, your sibling sucks, but especially your dad sucks. Like, all these people either let this happen, didn't even attempt to defend you in this situation, or were just actively resenting and treating you like the problem in the family, instead of, oh, I don't know, treating you like a kid. Like, how is this your fault? Even if your mom cheated and you're not actually like your dad's kid, there is really no reason why this should be the behavior that he exhibits. Like, holy crap, you're not Harry Potter, dude. Why are they forcing you to sleep under the stairs all the time. It's like, dude, you did nothing wrong. You're just a kid growing up in a circumstance where your dad's in denial, literally going out of his way to treat you like garbage and be like, yeah, you're not going to Disney World. No, you're not going to get takeout. Why would I give it to you? Stop trying to get close to me. I don't want to have any affection towards you. And then when he's proven wrong, he's like, I'm sorry, sweetie. My bad on being such a terrible monster in your life for, what is that? Oh, that's right, 19 years. You've got to understand where I'm coming from. I hated your guts, hypothetically, even though he could have figured this out literally the day you were born. Like, what is wrong with these people? Oh, and that also completely ignores the fact that your 6 older siblings are just idiots, and your mom's the biggest doormat on planet Earth. Like, holy crap. She literally sacrificed you as some kind of scapegoat, even though you didn't do anything wrong, dude. You're just born into a really dysfunctional family who obviously doesn't care about you. So for me, and I can only speak for myself, if I was in this situation and I had my crappy mom, my terrible siblings, and my idiot, absolute scumbag of a father trying to be like, oh, come home, let me make it up to you, I would be so pissed off. I don't think there's any way I could reasonably have a conversation like that. Like, I know myself, and I just don't think I would ever be able to let this go. I would probably harbor the worst possible feelings towards these people that you could possibly experience. I would do everything I can to never contact them again, to keep them out of my life, and be like, oh no, I'm not letting this go. Talk to me in 19 more years when I finally recover from the first 19 years you put me through. So truly, I'm so sorry this happened, but also, I don't blame you if you're pissed off. I would be pissed off. I think any reasonable human being would be pissed off, because your entire childhood was stolen from you by a father who is just naturally a giant piece of crap, but also a mother who just did not care to protect you at all. And hopefully you're able to find like a new life moving forward, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would not want to stay connected with these people. We've recently had a lot of people tell me like exactly where they are when they're watching Am I the Jerk and what they're doing. And it's always cool to see like what's going on, but like there's one comment recently that I saw from someone by the name of Tiny Human who says, oh yeah, I listen to this while I'm playing Stormworks Build and Rescue. But at the end of this, they said, I do a lot of building, but not a lot of rescuing. And I'm like, dude, Tiny Human, please, you gotta save those digital people. You gotta get in there and save them. Like, you're building all this rescue stuff and not doing anything with it. Which also makes me curious, like, what kind of like rescue stuff are you building in there? I've never played the game, so forgive me, but I imagine that you could probably build like, I don't know, Lord Megatron and be like, that's gonna save you from the ocean. So yes, Tiny Human, thank you so much for watching, but please, save those digital people in need. They need you, Tiny Human. You're the only one that can help them. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already, and also submit your own stories at AmITheJerk.com/submit. We would love to hear from you, and I would love to give a voice to your story. And with that, let's get back to the video and on to the next story. My entitled father refused to allow me to call him dad my entire life, as his marriage and like living situation with his family has been incredibly messy ever since I was born as a result of him cheating. But now 18 years later, he's having a change of heart, and he expects me to call him dad moving forward, which is something that's definitely not going to happen because I shut him down in a way that I'm sure he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened many years ago, but this is one of my many memories that resurfaces about my childhood. For context, my biological dad has a wife and kids. He cheated on his wife with my mom, and I'm the result of that mess. And that side is aware of me, but I've had no contact with them. Growing up, I would barely see him, like maybe once or twice a year, if that. And when I did, I was never allowed to call him dad, and he would introduce me to people as a friend's kid. My parents have always remained in contact with each other, and he kept in contact with her more than me. And she used to try and tell me stuff about what they talked about. As I got older and understood this wasn't how families worked, I would just tell her that if he didn't want to come see me to tell me himself, then I don't care. And eventually she just stopped telling me altogether. Now the above part was some important context because this is where my pettiness really comes in. When I was 18 years old, one of my mother's siblings passed away, and my dad came to the viewing. During this viewing, he came up to me and requested I go for a drive with him as he wanted to talk to me. So I went with him, and after a bit, he started telling me how he made some choices in his life that he now regrets. He went on like this for a bit, but it was pretty much an emotional dump for me. He then ended this with how he wished for me to call him dad going forward. Well, I sat there not saying anything the whole time he dumped all of this on me, and many things were racing through my head the entire time. I suppose I was silent for a while after his last statement, as he said, "So what do you think?" Well, I kept my eyes facing forward, not even trying to look at him, as I knew he kept looking at me as he drove. So I told him that he could wait 18 years, and then I'll see if I'll allow him to call me daughter. In my peripheral vision, I saw him just look straight ahead, and he was quiet as he drove us back to our family members viewing. Now, for the record, I have never addressed him as dad, and I'm currently only doing it here so people can understand the dynamics. Because once I moved out on my own, I've had zero involvement with him, and honestly, my life has been great because of it. Okay, I'll never understand why people treat kids like this, like seriously. It's so weird to me, like I can't imagine putting a kid in a situation where it's like, no, I'm not your dad. Don't call me dad, how dare you? You're just a friend's kid, you're not even mine. And then when he's finally come to his senses 18 years later, only then is he like, oh yeah, now you can call me dad, sorry about that. Like holy crap, I see these kind of stories all the time and it's so frustrating. Because like, dude, what do you mean? You should have done this 18 years ago. You should have done this when the 3-year-old kid walked up to you and said dad, and you said, oh, I'm not your dad, don't call me that. Like that's a scarring moment. Like you're a terrible human being. So good for the original poster. I'm so sorry this happened to you. But also, I'm glad you stood your ground. Like screw that. The way he treated you growing up was just completely unfair, and you definitely did not deserve that. Am I the jerk for telling my sister not to come to my wedding anymore and that I don't want her there? All because she literally slept in and was refusing to get up on time just to show up. Because once it was all said and done, my sister did exactly that. She slept in bed throughout my entire wedding, making me more angry than I've ever been in my entire life, causing me to block her entirely and basically cut her out of my life. And now I'm not sure if I went too far and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm a 29-year-old female and my sister's 21 and she is bipolar. She's never taken accountability for anything in her life. She's messy, she doesn't clean up after herself, she barely showers, and she's always late. She seriously waits until the last minute to shower when we need to leave. And even then, she still smells because she doesn't know how to clean herself properly. We've told her over and over again to please clean herself, but she just doesn't care. She has zero responsibility. She doesn't go to school as she dropped out of 3 different undergraduate programs. She doesn't work because even when she did, at one point she got fired after day 1 because she showed up completely stoned. So anyways, last week was my wedding. We were supposed to leave in 30 minutes and I still live with my parents since it's like a cultural thing. And I was already in my wedding dress with my makeup done when my mom came into my room and told me my little sister wasn't ready. And my God, I was already pissed off. I could hear my older sister yelling at her and I had warned her the day before and pretty much every day not to pull this on my wedding day. Because guess what? She did the same thing during my sister's wedding. She was still sleeping. She had spent the night playing video games. So I told her, please get up, we're leaving. But she just mumbled that she was going to, but her eyes were still closed and she was still in bed. And it's like, okay, I know exactly what she's doing. And so at this point, I lost it. I told her that she was selfish and that I was sick of her pulling this crap, even on my wedding day, that I was already stressed out and exhausted. And if she didn't want to come, then she should just stay home. That in fact, I didn't particularly want her there anyways. But unfortunately, we share blood. So I felt like I had to invite her for my mother's sake. My mother knows that I don't like my sister, and I also made it known to my sister multiple times. Well, my sister just told me, you need to calm down. She said that she was getting ready and to please get out of her room. But mind you, she is still there, literally in her bed with her eyes closed. So I told her that I didn't want her there. I said that I would just tell everyone that she got sick and that I didn't want her at my wedding. My mom and older sister tried to argue with me, but I told my mom that I paid for this wedding. If she wanted to side with her good-for-nothing daughter and skip my wedding, then yeah, that's your choice. But she should not expect anything from me going forward. And for reference, I've been helping my mom financially since she's on disability. Well, lo and behold, my little sister ended up not coming and just sleeping through the whole thing. I know this because my mom kept calling her during the whole wedding and she answered just completely sleepy. After the wedding itself, I texted her that I want no further contact and that she's not welcomed into my life. She then tried to apologize and said, oh, I've been feeling very depressed and having dangerous thoughts, if you know what I mean. But you know what? I just blocked her after telling her that I want no contact and to please stay away from me. And now, naturally, my mom is pissed off at me and says I went too far. So seriously, dear internet, am I the jerk in this situation? Did I really take it too far, or is this something my sister deserved? Because now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, if one of my siblings didn't show up to my wedding, literally just because they were like, oh, I want to sleep in, I don't want to go, I'm still sleeping right now, you need to calm down. Like, if they acted like that, dude, I would be super pissed off. Like, I could see myself getting so mad that I'm like, okay, you're out of my life. This is literally the most important day of my life, and you don't even want to show up, let alone try and be on time for once. Like, are you kidding me right now? That would be really insulting and just so heartbreaking. Because, dude, what do you mean she's done this before to your older sister? Like, that's crazy. Which for me is like, okay, it's kind of understandable why you lost your cool so suddenly, because you've seen this before, man. You've read this book and you know exactly how she's gonna act. She's gonna show up late and ruin pretty much everything, which is not fair for you, dude. You just want your wedding to be memorable and for everybody to put their drama aside and just be there for one another. So truly, I don't blame you for being pissed off. I would be upset as well because this was supposed to be your special day and instead she tried to ruin it. Today, my mom's boyfriend confessed that he's been wanting to sleep with me for a while now. And at this point, I want to move and get away from this guy because I don't want to live in a house where me, my infant son, and my younger sister are around some guy who feels this way about me. Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, before I even begin this train wreck, I've got to give some very necessary context. I'm a 20-year-old female and I've been living with my mom, her boyfriend, and my younger sister for around 6 months now. And this is also alongside my infant son who's only 1 year old because I had to leave my partner of several years who was basically mistreating me, to put it nicely. And for reference, my mom and her boyfriend are 40 years old and my younger sister is 14. Also, I'm not particularly close with either of my parents, but housing costs are crazy right now. I don't have much money, I have no other family, and I can't really drive. So this is about my only option at the moment. A few days ago now, my mom took my son out for a bit and my sister was at school. So I was left home alone with my mom's boyfriend. Now, me being bored at the time, I decided to chat with him over a few drinks. Anyways, during this conversation, I repeatedly dodged a few subtle attempts at flirting that he was throwing my way. But eventually, he literally gave up on being subtle and just straight up said that he's wanted to sleep with me for a while now. And I will say in this moment, he was a bit drunk. Now, thankfully, my mom came home basically within minutes of me rejecting him, so I didn't have to deal with the repercussions in the moment, and I have been avoiding him like the plague ever since. But now I don't know what to do. I want to tell my mom her boyfriend's a creep, but honestly, I think she will blame it on me somehow. In the least conceited way I can possibly say this, I know I'm conventionally attractive, and I tend to be popular with men. And throughout most of my life, she's shown some pretty obvious jealousy about this. If she thinks it's my fault, I'll be kicked out of the house, and I really cannot risk that. And I don't want to leave my sister here alone either, but I'm also a bit scared staying here as well. I've been staying awake for almost the entire time since that evening, and at this point, I'm really looking for some advice here because I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, someone outlined this really well in the comment section of this post, and I agree with everything they said. Like, basically, first off, the fact that this guy's even hitting on you in the first place is not because this guy's like drunk and he doesn't know what he's doing. If anything, that's just him removing his filter and saying all the things he secretly felt about you. And that is creepy, dude. That is so weird. Like, I don't know about anyone else, but someone's boyfriend should not be hitting on their partner's daughter. Like, I don't care. That's not okay. That's incredibly creepy. But if there's any motivation for you to not stay silent about this and to start like working through a plan of getting out of there, you got to look at your son and your sister, dude. I would immediately look at them and be like, we cannot stay here. So yeah, if you go through it logically, and all of the things I'm going to say here are like suggestions from the comment on this post itself, but basically people agree that yeah, write down everything he said while it's fresh. Never be alone with him again. Even if your mom's out, like you need to go for a walk and get away from there. Maybe even lock the door or put something against the door so that this guy can't walk in. But most importantly, and I really agree with this, now is the time to line up a fallback plan before having this conversation about the boyfriend. If you really think your mom's gonna kick you out of the house for saying anything about this guy, then yeah, you need to figure out another living situation for you, your son, and your sister. And that's like worst case scenario. Hopefully she understands where you're coming from because dude, this is such a weird situation. This is so unfair for you. So truly, to the original poster, I hope this all works out for you. I really hope things are okay at the end of this and you're able to find another place to live and like live a life away from this weirdo because this is not your fault. At the end of the day, this is absolutely not your fault. And hopefully you have some kind of support going through this because this sounds like it's going to be very stressful. Am I the jerk for refusing to spend another day helping with my best friend's wedding? Because truly, I really feel like I'm being taken for granted. And at this point, I'm not really sure what to do about this. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, so I've been best friends with someone who I will call Adam for years. I'm a 26-year-old female and he's 28 years old, and he's getting married in 2 weeks, and I've been helping him with the pre-wedding events wherever I can. For context, I'm not a designer or a wedding planner. I just have a decent eye for aesthetics and I know my way around Canva. Now, to help them save money, I volunteered to design their digital invites. The first invite involved lots of revisions because family members kept remembering things they wanted added after it was supposedly final. Before making the second invite, I specifically asked them to confirm all the content. The bride sent me the text that she wanted, and I used exactly that. Adam also didn't check with his family properly, and revisions were needed again. After I sent the final version, Adam messaged our group chat asking, "Where's the date on this invite?" Now, I was amused that everyone missed it despite so many versions, and I told him that it must have been missing because it wasn't in the content that I'd been given. He then replied by saying, "Yeah, but that was common sense. You should have added it." And I gotta be honest, that really stung because I had not even gotten a thank you, but blame was allocated rather quickly. I apologized anyways to avoid drama on the group chat, and he said it's okay and just moved on. Later, I told him privately that I didn't like how he had spoken to me, and he said he wasn't blaming me, but then added, "Why should I say thank you? Of course you'd do it for me, you're my best friend." Well, yesterday on Saturday, he asked me to help with wedding decor because apparently he wasn't happy with what the decorators had planned. Oh, and by the way, he asked this at the last minute when all families were already there, and I was basically asked to quickly come down and do it real quick. So here I am, literally spending 5 hours at the venue, and my inputs were the ones that he finally chose. But when I left, he mentioned they might actually meet the decorator again today. Well, this morning on Sunday, he called asking, "Aren't you coming?" And I told him I already had lunch plans. He then seemed surprised and said he thought it was obvious that I'd be there because I'm the designer. But it's like, no, I'm not a designer. I'm just a friend who's been helping out. There have also been smaller things that add to this feeling. Yesterday, he was supposed to drop off my iPad. He even asked me to come downstairs and then just completely forgot to stop at my place, leaving me waiting outside in the heat for 20 minutes before his driver eventually brought it back. He's an only child, and I've always treated him like the sibling he never had, and I genuinely enjoy showing up for my friends. And if he would have shown just a little bit more gratitude, I probably would have gone. But lately, it feels much less like, "Oh, would you mind helping out?" And instead, it's him expecting "Oh, of course you're doing this." So am I really the jerk for not going to this meeting today and instead saving my Sunday for me? Because I'm feeling really bothered by this, and it seems like my effort is just absolutely being taken for granted. What should I do? Okay, dude, I think it is definitely time to have some kind of conversation with him because, yeah, he is taking advantage of you. He's using your kindness and the fact that you guys have been friends forever as a really convenient excuse for him to act like you're his slave. And it's like, dude, what is going on right now? I'm just trying to help out. I shouldn't have to revise this graphic design I made for you just because you're unhappy with it. And I shouldn't be expected to give up my Sunday without any kind of notice. Dude, I am not on call for you. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to do this. I think you need to have a conversation with him and say, "Hey, I think I'm going to take a step back from this as I really don't have time to help out with any more." And if he freaks out over this, then that's his problem. That'll be kind of definitive proof that, yeah, he's being super toxic and you shouldn't be treated this way. An entitled brat gets me in trouble with corporate at the store I work with, all because I said PlayStation is better than Nintendo. And I'm honestly blown away that I got written up in the first place for a childish argument such as this. Here's what happened. So back in 2007, I was 23 at the time, and I worked for a large video game chain. Now, this was shortly after the Nintendo Wii came out, and we were always sold out of the product. Every single morning, we would have a line of customers that would wait around for our daily deliveries to see if we had any new Wiis coming in. So one evening, I was working a fairly slow shift, and these two kids came in and started chatting with my coworker and I. Both of them were probably about 14 years old and came around pretty frequently. One of the kids started talking about how great and wonderful the Nintendo Wii was. He started asking for my opinion, and I simply told him that it was a good console, but that I was not a fan of the idea of motion controls and didn't want to get one for myself. I then went on to say that I was more of a fan of PlayStation myself. He then started to lose his mind over this. Well, I should say that he pretended to lose his mind over this. I mean, come on, you could tell he wasn't really upset that I didn't like the Wii, and that he just wanted to mess around with me. He started to demand that I say the Wii was the greatest, and that there was no other better console. To be honest, it was getting a bit much, so I just stood my ground and continued to say that the Wii was not something that I liked. Now, at this point, the kid actually started getting really frustrated because I would not say what he wanted me to say. And at this point, I think he was starting to get upset for real this time, instead of just messing with me from before. He then pulled out the manager card. He told me that he knew the district manager, and that if I did not say that the Wii was the best console out there, that he would then report me to the district manager. Now, anyone that works in retail has probably heard that line before, so I just brushed it off and kept my position. The kid and his friend eventually stomped off, and I thought that was the end of it, but boy was I wrong. I come to find out that this kid actually did know the district manager. He ended up going to the district manager and came up with some lie about how I was extremely rude and an overall jerk to him specifically. Well, as a result, the district manager immediately wrote me up about it. She did not talk to my store manager or my coworker who was there that night before putting in the paperwork. After writing me up, the district manager called my store manager to go over the write-up. Needless to say, my store manager was shocked. She immediately defended me, saying that there is no way that I would treat a customer that way. The district manager at this point realizes that she may have been a little rash in her decision to write me up, and asked the store manager to investigate the event. So my coworker and I arrived that afternoon and sat down with the store manager themselves. She tells me that I've been written up because I was so rude to some kid earlier in the week. I tell her my side of the story, and my coworker tells her what he saw as well. My store manager went back to the district manager, told my side of the story, as well as my coworker's version. The district manager ended up going back to the kid and finally figured out that he had lied to her. The next time that I had to work, I got a face-to-face visit from the district manager. She starts apologizing to me for writing me up without even looking into the event in question. But she told me that she cannot undo the write-up, that once the paperwork goes through, that it cannot be undone. I always wondered if she could have reversed the write-up, but said that she couldn't in order to save her own skin. As for the kid, he was forced to give me an apology. The store manager then gave me the option on whether he would be banned from the store or not. I was even given the option to permanently ban him, but I didn't want him bitter over a stupid mistake. I ended up making the ban for something like 3 months or something along those lines. I never did see that kid after he got banned, even after the ban had lifted, and I kinda wonder if he was too embarrassed to show up while I worked there. But you know what? Nowadays, I actually prefer Nintendo over PlayStation, but I am still not a big fan of the Nintendo Wii. Wow, I can't believe someone tried to get you in trouble, all because you said, no, I don't like Nintendo, and I prefer PlayStation overall. Like seriously, imagine going to work and getting written up by the district manager, all because you express your opinion, and then this stupid brat gets you in trouble by making up some awful lie about the way you treated them. Like you didn't treat them like garbage. In fact, you didn't even do anything at all. All you did was refuse to say exactly what that kid wanted you to say, and that clearly angered him enough so that he would try and get the district manager on you. And honestly, I think you could have gone above the district manager if you really wanted that paperwork reversed. I'm pretty sure that they were just being super lazy about it, and they didn't want to admit their mess up to corporate, who absolutely would have dropped the hammer on them specifically. And when it comes to that kid getting banned, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have been a bit more severe than a 3-month ban. This kid probably thought he could do whatever he wanted at these stores, all because he knew the district manager. He knew that he always had that option in his back pocket, so that any awful behavior he would exhibit at these stores could then be excused by throwing out the name of the district manager, as if that's going to protect them from getting some kind of punishment. So honestly, good for you for banning that kid for 3 months. That little brat was completely out of line, and he absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for supposedly publicly shaming my sister-in-law after she makes a big deal about how awful she looked at my wedding? Here's what happened. So I got married to my husband this past July. Our wedding theme was fairy court. We only invited close family and friends and requested that they wear jewelry-toned dresses and suit jackets. The wedding was in a sort of a forest. We also took photos with everyone, not just the wedding party itself, which only consisted of a best man and a maid of honor. Well, my sister-in-law, who's in her mid-20s, shows up in a blush pink dress and her boyfriend in a cream suit jacket. She thought that this would make her pop, I guess. I mean, she is an attention seeker, by testimony of everyone except for her mom. But honestly, the joke was on her. My dress was gold and shimmery, and my husband was in an emerald green jacket. Also, I was wearing a full-on crown, so there was no mistaking who the bride was. When the photographer asked me if she should Photoshop them a bit, just to make them blend in more, since we went with a dramatic photo style that emphasized the deep jewelry tones and the darkness of the forest, I ended up telling her not to bother. Just make them look nice, but don't change the colors or anything like that. Well, I received the photos 4 days ago, and I posted them on Instagram, with most of them ending up on Facebook, since most of our older relatives still use it exclusively. And honestly, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend looked completely out of place, and they were almost washed out entirely. Well, she then had the nerve to comment on my post, and it was very passive-aggressive, something along the lines of washing her out to make herself stand out more. But I responded by saying that she washed herself out by literally ignoring the wedding themes. She then eventually deleted her comment. But then we met last night at my in-laws, and it was an accident, not planned or anything like that. She said pretty much the same thing, so I repeated that she was washed out because the photo style that we chose emphasized deep colors. That's why we asked people to wear what they wore. Things escalated from there, and it ended up with me telling her that she looked like absolute garbage in our photos, and that she was just a jealous little woman who thought she could upstage me with a $30 dress the color of diluted Pepto-Bismol. She then started crying and eventually left. Now my mother-in-law says that I owe my sister-in-law an apology for publicly shaming her, as well as insulting her for her looks. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? situation? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. For starters, I think it's pretty obvious to anybody who listened to the story that you did not insult her on her looks. You only said the color of her dress was out of place, and that literally is her own problem. Also, everybody else could show up with a dress code in mind, so why could your sister-in-law not do the same? Like seriously, that's so irresponsible and that's so weird. She was clearly trying to stand out and upstage you at your wedding. That's such a stupid thing to do, and honestly, I would be really upset as well if that happened to me. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here. It really seems like your sister-in-law was trying to start a fight or somehow shame you for the way that they dressed at your wedding, when honestly, with all things considered, the way she looked at your wedding is completely her fault. My husband is absolutely convinced that I have been cheating on him, but despite the fact that I keep telling him that no, I haven't cheated on him and I never would, he is still convinced that I'm going behind his back. And now he's given me an ultimatum. I can either confess to cheating on him or he's going to leave me entirely. And now I honestly don't know what to do. So I first want to say that this is such a wild situation. I don't even know how to explain it without sounding crazy. My husband and I have been married for 5 years and we don't have any children. There are several issues in the relationship, but they are way too in-depth to get into in this post. My husband has always exhibited some degree of paranoia, but not just about cheating as suggested in the title. However, it has been related to a fear or like this paranoia about cheating on multiple occasions. The other night, my husband got drunk and started telling me that the only possible way to fix our relationship is if I admit that I've done something. He says he knows something is going on, and if I don't tell him what it is, he is going to leave me. He said that he's let me convince him in the past, but that he won't be convinced this time that nothing has happened. It's also very important to note here that obviously I have not cheated or kept anything from him. And I said this to him multiple times. Numerous times when I said that, he would smirk as if he caught me in a lie and say that he can see it and that there's no point in hiding it. We had this back and forth for about an hour, and he kept telling me how good I am at lying and convincing him that I'm not cheating. He kept saying things like, just admit it, as well as also saying, we have no chance of being okay if you don't tell me that you're cheating. Now, I told him I had no idea what to do and that I felt backed into a corner since he was basically telling me I had to lie to him and tell him that I did something that I didn't, or else he was gonna leave me. It was very scary and very miserable. I mean, he was relentless. I said I didn't know what to say, but he just said, yes, you do. And I said, well, you're just completely wrong. I haven't done anything and I have not hid anything from you. He admitted that he had no proof, but he said that it's the truth that I did something. He then said to me, if I've ever been right about anything to do with anybody in any type of relationship that I've ever had with another person, then trust me, I'm right about this one. He also told me that I'm breaking his heart, and if I don't admit it, it's my fault that he'll never be able to trust anyone ever again. I'm completely freaked out and utterly devastated. I can't convince him, even though I can account for everywhere I've been. I mean, I have a very tight schedule that involved me being around other people who could clearly vouch for where I've been and when I've been there. Even if I could, I feel like the way he was talking to me and the hour-long accusations might have changed the way I feel about him. The next day, I told him that even if he does manage to be convinced, I don't know if I will ever get over that conversation and about how he so clearly thinks and feels about me. He still doesn't believe me, but said he'd try to, even though that's what he's done in the past. But trust me, it's never been quite this bad before. Now, given that this topic came up again, I'm fairly certain that even if he tries to believe me, it will only happen again eventually. Ever since that incident, he has hardly been speaking to me, and I honestly don't feel good about it at all. I mean, should I try to keep talking to him? Is there some kind of way for me to get over how badly I feel towards him right now? I honestly feel so crazy, and I now don't know what to do. Wow, what a crazy situation to be in. And I don't say that this sounds crazy in like the hypothetical sense. Like seriously, your husband sounds insane. Like look at his behavior. This guy is utterly convinced that you are cheating on him without having any kind of evidence or anything going on to prove that you are cheating with him. Like he legitimately does not sound well mentally, and in my opinion, this is a massive red flag. Because here's the thing, even if you did lie and say, okay, I cheated on you, whatever, he is then just gonna hold that over your head and try and treat you like garbage for the rest of your life, even if you do decide to stay with him or not. Like this guy seriously sounds like there's something going on in his brain, and that is not something I would take lightly in the slightest. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way on earth I would put up with this for a single second. Like I am not about to put up with somebody treating me like that. There's no way that's gonna happen. The other possibility is maybe he's the one that's actually doing the cheating. Sometimes from like personal experience from like family members in my own own life, it really seems like when the other person is like, oh, you're the one that's cheating, they are clearly just projecting because in reality, they're the one that's cheating. And it's honestly such an awful thing to do, and there's no good reason to treat someone like that. So you know what? I don't blame you for being upset. The way he's acting is incredibly insane. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very slow to forgive him as well, because he accused you of something absolutely awful, and there is no good excuse for the way he's treating you. Would I be the jerk if I didn't sign my coworker's farewell card after she treated me like garbage right before I was about to clock out? Here's what happened. So I started a new job a month and a half ago. I am still learning a lot as I'm working with completely new systems and protocols. My shift is from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, with half an hour of unpaid lunch Monday through Friday. My coworker, we'll call her Louise, that's not her real name, works part-time herself, but on days that she's here, we're scheduled to finish at the same time. I usually start to get ready to leave 3 minutes before 4, which includes clearing my desk for tomorrow, logging out of my computer, and collecting my things, all before leaving at 4. Today, I was a few seconds early and was ready to go when Louise stops me. She says to me, "You're leaving early. You're paid to work until 4, but you're always packing up 3 to 4 minutes beforehand. It's as if you hate being here." This took me by surprise, and I thought she was joking because all day I hear her complain about everything, whether it's significant or not. And maybe this was some kind of sarcasm, but she seemed genuinely annoyed with me. I'm not very confrontational, especially when I'm new and I'd rather just not get in trouble so early. So I said to her, that's not the case at all. I just want to leave on time because if I'm a minute late, I miss the bus and it would make my trip even longer back home. She says to me, "That's your reason? I'm a temporary staff member, but I still work overtime even though I'm not paid. But you are just itching to go. It's really telling of how much you actually like it here." I kind of just stood there waiting for if there was any more she wanted to say, and then she said the following, "But I don't care. I'm leaving next week, so do whatever you want." And then she just carries on passive-aggressively. I ended up just leaving right after that, but this really upset me because I'm trying my best despite not being familiar with anything. I mean, I already feel like an outsider because of others' treatments, and she herself would only ever talk to me if I made a mistake that she wanted to point out or just making me aware of work that I already knew about. If she had the time to notice when I left, I would have also hoped that she would notice that I work throughout lunches, and sometimes I'm not eating at all just to make sure that my work for the day is done and to cut me some slack. I mean, she takes what, 5 to 10 minutes to leisurely walk around, which has nothing to do with her work, all just to make tea multiple times, which clearly takes time away from her actually doing her job. I mean, I didn't bring that up to her because honestly, who cares? And on top of that, she's leaving the company. I honestly want nothing to do with her anymore. I mean, maybe I'll say hello or goodbye, considering the fact that she would go around telling people how rude I am, especially if I decide to just ignore her. But eventually, because she's leaving, a farewell card is being passed around to give to her on the last day. And since we work in the same office, I'm expected to sign and write a nice note. But honestly, after my last interaction, nothing nice seems to come to mind. So would I be the jerk if I didn't sign her leaving card after that? What should I do? Wow, your coworker sounds like a piece of work. She's clearly just a disgruntled employee who's obviously trying to look for faults in others when she's the one doing the exact thing she's complaining about. I can't stand working with people like that, and honestly, it is a blessing in disguise that she is leaving. She's not going to have any sway over how you're perceived in the office, and you won't have to deal with her horrible attitude ever again, which is really nice. But you know what? In my opinion, I think you really should sign that card regardless. Here's the thing, corporate America is all about playing the game. You need to pretend like you're friends with everybody else just to get by. It's an unfortunate thing that you sign up for in any kind of corporate setting, and I really think you should play that game just to try and get ahead. And no, you don't need to mean it. You could write something simple and just leave it at that, even if it's just a complete lie. You could even simply say best of luck to you and then put your name at the bottom of it. Like honestly, it doesn't have to be complicated, but I do think it's a good idea to play the game of the corporate office. It's also important to know that you won't be working with these people for the rest of your life. Like there's a high likelihood you will switch jobs, and you very well could end up in the same office as this Louise lady. And sure, you had a negative interaction in the hallway because she's being a busybody, but you know what? At least you signed her card and wished her well on the way out the door. You could be really nasty about it, but honestly, that's not going to serve you well. She is leaving after all, and you have all your coworkers and bosses to report to who are going to be watching your every move. So I don't think you would be the jerk for not signing the card. Instead, I think this would be very detrimental to your career for choosing not to do it, because at the end of the day, you're the new person at this job, and it really would be in your best interest to start off with a good good impression. Am I the jerk for not allowing my husband to take our daughter out of state to visit his parents? Here's what happened. So to start things off, my husband and I have 4 kids together. We have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. In total, there's 1 girl and 3 boys, with the girl being the oldest. My husband has been determined on taking our daughter out of our resident state of New York to visit his parents in Arkansas. I am wholeheartedly against the idea and have conveyed that repeatedly. My husband says I'm being selfish by not letting him take our daughter to his parents. I have let him and her travel to various other states, but I do not feel comfortable with her going to my in-laws, and I have put my foot down and said no. Now, for some context, my mother-in-law is just awful. She despises me. She has always said that she wished her son married somebody else. She has accidentally texted the family group chat talking garbage about me when that was meant for other members of her family. She also insinuated that I was having an affair with her husband, and this was supposedly because I went out of my way to help him get medical care for his Alzheimer's. She has repeatedly crossed boundaries that I've set for our children, such as no posting them on social media, no mouth kissing or sharing of food or drinks, especially when you have a cold sore. I mean, come on, that should be obvious. And my mother-in-law is not nice to any of my children. Having been in my house for 2 weeks just 3 months ago, not once did she hold either of my youngest children and repeatedly told my oldest kid to go away. Not to mention my mother-in-law is a depressing individual who talks about the death of her loved ones repeatedly. As she held my firstborn baby for the first time, she started sobbing and talked about how she had a stillborn that looked exactly like my baby. Lastly, this woman drinks about 2 bottles of wine a night all alone, and this is every single night. My father-in-law, on the other hand, is amazing. He used to be very loving to our children and would spend the entire summer with us before his illness took over. Now he is nonverbal and very short-tempered. He spanked our 3-year-old during their last visit to our house. And trust me when I say this, we are a very non-spanking household. I grabbed my kids and took them into another room. Obviously, my kid isn't traumatized, but it made me extremely uncomfortable, and I felt like I had to constantly watch my kids when he was around. My husband told me to let it go, since his dad doesn't really understand much at this point. While my boundaries are repeatedly crossed, my husband doesn't necessarily agree. He is much more relaxed and lets many things slide. Needless to say, I don't feel comfortable having my 5-year-old daughter in their home for many reasons. I've told my husband he's welcome to go visit them alone, but I don't want our daughter going with him. He says the visit isn't centered around his parents, that he wants to go show her where he grew up, to which I responded that if that's the case, then we can all go as a family and you can show all of us at the same time. But he said no, because there's always drama with you and my parents. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk. Your husband and your mother-in-law are absolutely the jerks. First of all, the fact that your husband's not supporting you in this decision is honestly disgusting. He really needs to pull his head out of you-know-where and realize that his parents are toxic. Sure, his dad doesn't necessarily know what's going on, and he is very much out of the loop when it comes to understanding his surroundings. I mean, Alzheimer's is a horrible disease, and I don't blame you for feeling some kind of sympathy, but his mother absolutely knows better. Her behavior is disgusting, and I don't blame you for saying, no, you're not taking my kid with you. So seriously, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your husband is being an absolute jerk, and the fact that he's not putting his foot down and defending you more honestly speaks volumes about his character. My entitled friend demands proof that my fiance is actually sick, claiming that he is actually faking it and that we just set up a donation page to assist my fiance just so we would have more money for our wedding. And I'm honestly so disgusted by my friend's behavior, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I am engaged to my fiance James. James is not his real name. He recently had surgery on his leg and hip, but there were complications, and he has been sick and weak ever since. We try not to ask for help, but this has put a big financial strain on us, to the point where we've spent our wedding savings on his recovery. We are fine with this, because if we need to have a courthouse wedding, we're completely cool with it. We just want him to be healthy, but we did set up a temporary donation page to help with some of the expenses. A friend of mine by the name of Carla donated $10 about a month ago, and I reached out to her to thank her. Last week, we posted an update, not asking for more money, but just to let people know that he has had another setback, and the doctors are creating an all-new treatment plan just for him. Carla commented publicly and said the following: "I'm beginning to question if he has actually been sick this long, or if y'all are just trying to get more money for your wedding. Who takes this long to recover from surgery, especially when you're an athlete?" I responded to her by saying the following: "I am very offended and appalled that you would accuse us of faking anything. Maybe maybe you're just having a bad day or a moment of bad judgment, but how shamefully low of you." She replied back by saying, "I want my donation back unless you can show proof that he's sick. Is he in a hospital bed or sitting in a doctor's office? Do you have anything to prove that he's actually sick?" I sent her $10 back to get her off of our backs, but I also sent her a video with James's approval, all of the proof that she had asked for. One of the concerns James has had is that he will get severely nauseous if he eats protein, which is what he's supposed to be doing. This also happens if he overexerts himself. So I sent her a video of him dry heaving into a bag in the middle of physical therapy. Now, one of his doctors asked us to record his physical therapy so they can see the progression of him not feeling well to hopefully making some adjustments. So I didn't take this video just to send it to Carla, but to me it seemed like solid proof since she was asking for it. She said to me, "That is disgusting. I don't want to see that. This is triggering me so bad. I hope you're happy with yourself. I feel like I've been completely traumatized now." So I just said back to her, "Okay, well now you have $10 more to process that trauma in therapy." And I've honestly never dealt with anyone so entitled in my life. Yeah, your friend Carla is hardly even a friend. Like seriously, what is wrong with her? Who in their right mind would question someone in the hospital? Look, if you don't think he's being legit, don't send your money over to them. Just keep it for yourself and mind your own business. But for her to literally go out there and be like, "Wow, I don't think you're actually sick, you're probably faking it," while also demanding evidence that they're actually sick in the first place, all of that in my opinion is so toxic. That seriously is so disgusting, and I can't imagine being that awful of a person. It's also incredibly ironic that once you send this video over to Carla, she tries to pretend like she's all triggered and she can't handle what she's seeing. But in reality, she's the one that wanted to see visual proof that yeah, he's not doing well. Like also think about it for a second. James and the original poster are getting married. Do you really think they would risk their entire reputation just to get a couple $100 from people around them? Like I can't imagine they would ruin their lives like that over maybe what, a couple $1,000s at most? That just doesn't seem worth it in my opinion. So yeah, this Carla lady is a complete jerk. She is absolutely not a good friend, and I think you know exactly who you're not going to invite once the wedding between you and James finally comes around. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband claims that I tripped over a suitcase on purpose just to guilt trip him for not moving it sooner, and now I'm being called a jerk, as he claims that I did that on purpose just to get back at him. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 32-year-old female, and I'm currently 8 months pregnant with our first child, and I am trying to do everything I can to make sure the house is ready. This started with a little spring cleaning jobs, but has developed into a full-blown deep clean of literally everything. One of the things I have decluttered recently was mine and my husband's closet. I donated everything that we don't wear and have folded and put away everything that we won't need during winter. Some of this clothing has gone into a suitcase, which is currently sitting on our bedroom floor because it is too heavy for me to lift and even put away. I have asked my husband to please help me more than once, but he is always either too tired after finishing work or he says that it slips his mind. All in all, the suitcase is currently looking like a permanent installation in our bedroom. He has at least shifted it out of the main walkway in the interim. Well, last night I woke up to go to the bathroom and ended up tripping over the suitcase as I fumbled in the dark. I do obviously know where it is after it's been there for so long, but I was half asleep and I was trying to avoid our sleeping puppy. Now, while the fall wasn't bad, I did wake up my husband in the process. My husband was initially quite worried, especially since our midwife told us that any fall needed a trip to the hospital. But once he realized that it was because of the suitcase, he then became quite upset. He said to me that there's no way I could have tripped over the suitcase unintentionally, as he had supposedly moved it out of the walkway, and I just tripped over it to try and prove a point. He said that he could not believe I would behave so passive-aggressively and put our baby's life at risk rather than just asking him again. He also went on to say that forgetting to move the case is not a crime. The more I tried to explain that I was trying to avoid waking him up and tripping over the dog, the more he said that these were just convenient excuses to make him look lazy and unhelpful around the house. He said I was punishing him for not getting to the suitcase sooner, and that if anything, I should have had a plan to deal with it from the beginning, as it was me who wanted to sort out the closet in the first place. My husband was fired up again after I mentioned to the midwife this morning that I had tripped over a suitcase, and he said I could have just told her that I had fallen over the dog or over my shoelaces or something like that. He said to me that he made his feelings clear during the night when we had our discussion, and I was rubbing salt in the wounds now. I I spoke to my mom about it after we got back from the midwife because I wanted to vent to her, and she surprisingly took his side and said I was letting my emotions get the best of me. My mom said I should have been more graceful bringing it up in front of the midwife, although I will say that I never said anything about asking him to move it. She said that the situation has probably made my husband feel quite bad about himself, which is why this has turned into such big drama. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your mom and your husband are being complete idiots, and they are missing so many key facts here. For starters, your husband easily could have moved it. You asked him multiple times if he could just get it out of the way. You can't lift it because you're what, 8 months pregnant? Like seriously, you should not be moving anything like that, especially if it's heavy if you're that far into your pregnancy. Like that would be irresponsible and it could damage you and the baby. So the fact that your husband was so willing to put it off and then freak out on you when you tripped over the stupid suitcase is proof enough to me that he not only feels guilty, but he's now trying to like shift that blame on you somehow. Like seriously, it was dark and you were trying to avoid the dog. It's not like you tripped over it on purpose while you were pregnant. That would be an insane thing to do, and I just don't think you would be willing to do that. Now, when it comes to your mother, I think she's completely wrong as well. You're not rubbing salt in the wound. That's such a stupid thing to say. You are literally just trying to talk to the midwife and make sure that you are okay and the baby's okay. You didn't tell the midwife how you fell down, you just fell down by tripping over a suitcase. If your husband wants to get bent out of shape and really upset because he didn't move it, and by effect making him the reason why you tripped over in the first place, then that's honestly on him. But for your mom as well as your husband to basically be shifting the blame in your direction, that in my opinion is so unacceptable. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think your husband was being very irresponsible and he clearly feels guilty about not moving that suitcase. My new girlfriend slept with someone at Burning Man after 1 month of us dating, and now I'm kind of at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I first want to start off by saying that our relationship ramped up very quickly, and I have had some difficulties with relationships in my 30s. For context, I'm 39 and my girlfriend is 36, but this one felt different from the start. We connected deeply and felt a mutual adoration for one another and shared vision for the future. We committed to each other after a few weeks of dating, and then went away on separate trips for 2 weeks, a couple of weeks after committing, and 5 weeks since meeting up. And so I went to a meditation retreat and she went to Burning Man. Before leaving, she reassured me deeply that nothing would happen and she was crazy about me and so excited about our future. She said she was using her time there to deepen our relationship. We exchanged notes to open one day while we were apart. And yes, it's cute, I know. I was on a silent meditation retreat, so I was in a bit of a quarantine, dreaming of seeing her again soon. I was definitely falling in love. Anyway, when we reunited to embark on our post-Burning Man vacation together, she immediately confessed to having slept with someone at Burning Man. And this is someone from her camp who had a girlfriend. She said that she'd never need to see or talk to that person again, and that she's over it and it was not emotionally significant, and really wants to work things through. Her apology was clumsy as she navigated the shame, but she did apologize. I had such a clear vision for our future, a future I've been dreaming about for such a long time. We've decided to try and work through it, and we've had our ups and downs. Now, I am falling in love with her, but I also can't stop being bummed out about what happened. In the end, I know we moved way too fast. It just felt like something special that warranted moving at the speed it wanted to, and she reassured me so intensely that I felt a bit baited. Anyways, I'm just trying to sort out that if we keep spending time together, I can finally let this go. It was very early and she slept with one guy one time, and she admitted immediately. I do trust she wouldn't do it again. I mean, our connection has deepened even further. We shouldn't have committed so quickly, but we did. I wish we took things more slowly, but we didn't. So now I'm trying to look at this as some kind of fresh start for us, but 6 weeks later and I'm still not over it. If I won't be able to let it go, then it would be best to let the relationship go, as hard as that might be. I would honestly love some outside perspective, because I'm really wondering if this will pass with time and we can build something great. Or is this a situation where it might always be tainted? It does seem logically forgivable to me, but my emotions and ruminations are lagging. And honestly, at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I am really surprised that you stuck with her after she confessed that she cheated. And that's what she did. She cheated. She didn't just sleep with another guy, she straight up cheated on you. And it's astonishing to me that throughout this entire post, you didn't say that she cheated on you a single time, because that's exactly what she did. And I think it's important to note that if you do want to move forward. What she did is completely unacceptable. She knew what she was doing and she did that willingly, despite the fact that you two were very clearly in a relationship. And I know that if I was in your shoes, I would have turned my back on her in an instant. There is no way I would would waste my time with someone like that, especially this early in the relationship, because in my opinion, if she can do it once, she absolutely can do it again. And sure, you clearly feel differently. You've been able to develop some kind of relationship between the two of you, and honestly, good for you. But I know for a fact I would be out of there so fast it's not even funny. And even worse, she cheated on you with somebody who already had a girlfriend. Like, think about that for a second. That is so unbelievably sketchy. So in my opinion, if you want to try and make this work, then go for it. But I know that if that was me in that situation, there's absolutely no question about it. I would have walked out of that relationship and never looked back. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend a wedding in another state with my 8-year-old baby? Because right now I'm being guilt-tripped by everybody in my extended family, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 35-year-old female, and I've been having a few tricky discussions with my husband and his family over a wedding that's happening later this year. I don't want to go, but people are telling me I should just deal with it and figure out a way. Let me give you some background. The groom in question is my husband's cousin. They're not that close. They only see each other once every year or so at large family events and never keep in touch in between. The wedding is in another state, and we would need to catch a plane there as it is too far for us to drive. We received an invitation, and we heard through the grapevine that we could bring our baby. My gut instinct told me to double check with the bride. I didn't want to commit the faux pas of bringing a baby to a wedding if it was not what the bride wanted. And sure enough, when we emailed her, she replied and said very clearly, "Sorry, this is a baby-free wedding." And of course, that's fine. It's completely her choice. This is her special day after all. So we replied and told them that my husband would attend alone, as I would have to stay at home with the baby. My baby is only 8 months old and still breastfeeding, so I can't just leave him back home so easily. Not long after we sent the RSVP about me not coming, several people contacted us, including the bride and groom, trying to persuade us to go. Apparently now they've changed their minds, and the baby could now come to the wedding since they wanted me there as well. I told my husband I didn't want to go. Even though the bride had done a 180 on the no baby rule, I still felt he was too young to attend, and it would be too difficult to go interstate. I would probably spend half, if not most of the wedding absent due to nursing the baby, as well as the baby making noises and babbling during the ceremony. And of course, it has a bedtime at 7:30. In my opinion, this is too much hassle for a short amount of family time. But my husband is upset and really wants to make the effort, and I'm starting to feel like I'm being unreasonable for putting my foot down and saying that this is way too hard. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk here. Listen, everybody's adults here. People can make their own decisions for whatever they want. And if you don't want to go to this stupid wedding, then in my opinion, I would just not go. I would say, look, I'm not gonna go, I've got a baby, it's gonna be too much. And if they still don't get it, then just let them not get it. You should not be guilt-tripped into showing up to this stupid wedding just to then have to spend all this time and energy just to take care of your 8-month-old child, who, by the way, is probably going to be high maintenance. Like, they're traveling on an airplane, they're gonna be in a foreign environment. There's a lot of things that could and probably will go wrong with the baby coming along. And honestly, dealing with that on top of going to this wedding and making an appearance, all of that just sounds completely exhausting. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for wanting to stay at home, and I seriously think the simple solution here is to simply say no. An entitled jerk demands that I keep my mouth shut and just keep serving beer, claiming that he doesn't need my help and that he is paid to do the thinking and that I'm just paid to serve the beer. So I decide to maliciously comply and watch as he slowly starts to unravel at the seams. And I've never been more satisfied to watch karma work its magic in my life. Here's what happened. So this happened about 10 years ago now. I'd been working in catering and hospitality, mostly managing pubs, for about 10 years at this stage. The catering company I worked for had come up short-staffed for a smallish function and festival that they were putting on, probably a maximum of 200 people at a venue they controlled. I was in a different division but asked to help out on the bar, as well as the bump in and bump out. This was easy enough, and the music was looking pretty good, so I agreed. It was in the middle of the spring. The weather had not yet been really warm, so we were expecting decent numbers but nothing special. Bringing in the bar was easy enough. The venue was massive and easily able to accommodate the truck and all the things we would need. Having a single mobile bar with just one tap tree was probably on the light side, but I figured the venue manager knew what he was doing. So I introduced myself to him and I got to work. I unloaded and brought all the gear and beverages in and made a couple of attempts to discuss how we would set up the service area, but each time was shut down with progressively more aggressive language until he finally told me, "Look, I've run dozens of functions in this venue. I think I know how to set it up. We really only asked for a bartender." So I thought to myself, okay, no problem, buddy. I didn't mention to him that it had been me that picked up the truck from the warehouse, collected the bar and 10 kegs from our supplier, as well as the other beverage package, and delivered it to him, or that I was the only one able to bump it all out at the end of the evening. So I just agreed with whatever he said and set things up for how he wanted. So the weather ended up being a beautiful day, about 27 degrees Celsius or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. There was a light breeze and the turnout was about 400, which was much better than expected. Pretty quickly, it turned out that we were struggling to keep up with bar service, so I suggested that rather than having a traditional service, we should have one person on the till, one person constantly pouring beers, and one person filling up other drinks, stuff like wine or soft drinks or stuff like that. But once again, I was snapped at by the now very clearly stressed out venue supervisor. He just said to me, "You just keep serving and let me do the thinking." So I thought to myself, okay, I've officially had enough. Customers were getting frustrated at the slow service, and this peanut was too proud to accept advice from someone far more experienced. And then the keg blew. I was about to change it when this genius stepped in and said he would take care of it. I checked that he knew what he was doing and was assured he's done this 100 times, and so I decided to back off and leave him to it. So I did just that. I watched him not uncouple the gas line and go straight for the beer lock. Happily though, he had his face right in the correct spot, so as soon as he cracked the lock, it copped a huge spray in his face of nice warm beer foam. And this went all through his hair and all through his glasses, wet all the way down the front of his shirt as well. It was glorious to behold, and the first 30 people in line thought so as well, because they witnessed some of his antics. And after that, I didn't hear much from him for the rest of the day. He asked me to change the kegs when needed and pretty much just stayed away from the service area. We eventually streamlined things as well, and although it didn't end up a success as far as customer satisfaction goes, it was thankfully not the disaster that I thought would be brewing. Yeah, that venue guy clearly thought he had everything figured out. Firstly, this guy just did not know what he was doing. He was clearly in over his head and thought, wow, I can handle this by myself. I don't need you to do anything. I just need a bartender. Like, okay, buddy, I've been doing this for what, 10 years now? Like, the fact that he couldn't put his pride to the side and say, okay, let me get some help, as well as take some kind of suggestion from this other person, shows to me that this guy very clearly should not have been a venue manager. So good for the original poster for letting this train wreck happen. This guy absolutely had it coming for himself, and any problems this guy ran into throughout the entirety of this night is quite literally his own fault. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not giving my ex-girlfriend exactly what she wants after she decided to cheat on me? Here's what happened. My girlfriend and I of 4 years moved into an apartment with a close friend of mine. When we first moved in, I wanted to replace my old mattress with something new. My girlfriend has chronic pain, and so I thought I'd let her pick something out that would feel comfortable for her to lay on. I offered to buy a $3,000 mattress that's one of those purple mattresses, and this would also include a frame, but she felt she should pay half of it since we both would be using it. Not wanting to argue, I just went with it and used the extra money I had to give us a nice TV as well as a PlayStation 5. To be fair, the PlayStation 5 was mostly for me, but she'd be free to use it whenever she wanted. Fast forward a little bit later, and she has been cheating on me with my roommate, and eventually she leaves me for him, which brings up the issue of what to do with the mattress. Despite everything that's happened, we're both trying to be civil while I look for a place to move out. The solution that she's wanting is for me to give her the mattress, and she'll go in half to help me get a mattress. I don't have much cash saved up, so that option really sucks. I'd prefer to just keep the mattress and pay her the $1,500 that I owe her instead, which was the initial deal when we broke up. My reasoning is that I was initially going to buy it to begin with. I was the one who wanted a new one to begin with. And also, I'm not the one that cheated. Her reason is that she picked it out specifically to help with her back pain. And now I understand that she offered to go half in on a mattress with me, but again, I don't have that same amount of money saved up to use for something like this at the moment. So that doesn't feel fair to me that I'm downgrading mattresses all because she's the one that cheated on me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I do not think you're the jerk at all. Your girlfriend absolutely cheated on you. She is a piece of garbage and she absolutely knows it. She's walking out on your relationship to go with your roommate. I mean, come on, that is such an awful situation to be stuck in. So honestly, in my opinion, I think your plan is the better one. Just pay her what you owe for the mattress and keep the mattress for yourself. And you know what? If she doesn't like it, well then guess what? She probably shouldn't have cheated. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here, and your ex is just gonna have to deal with it. An entitled mother lets her kids run around my coffee shop and do whatever they want. want. But after her kids started destroying the property of this coffee shop, I decided to step in and tell her enough is enough, causing this Karen of a mother to freak out and start screaming at me. Here's what happened. So there's this lady that comes in all the time. She has 4 children, 3 of which can walk around. She always comes up and orders her coffee, but then if her kid throws a fit, she orders something for them too. They each get a pastry, which is popular for kids between the ages of 3 and 6. It's like getting a big slice of sugary bread, with each of them getting a drink as well. It's always very complicated to make because the kids all want something entirely different. Anyways, her kids are usually fine. I've noticed, however, that she never really watches them. She gets her coffee, sits down on our couch, and gets out her phone. She makes them, again these little kids, come up and grab their own orders. It's also dumb because since they're little, I have to stand there and reach over the counter to hand their drinks over, while also making sure that they don't drop it or spill it on the ground. The other day she came in about an hour before we close. That's right around when we start cleaning up because it takes me that long to close the shop. So she orders her coffee and luckily her kids didn't feel like getting anything. So I made her coffee and that was it. I'm washing dishes and all of a sudden I hear a shatter from across the restaurant. Her little boy had broken some salt and pepper shakers that were sitting on the table that eventually fell on the ground because they were horsing around. Now there's a big pile of salt and pepper on the floor, but worst of all, there's now glass on the floor around little children. So I rushed over to sweep it up because I did not want anybody getting hurt, and that was honestly fine for the most part. But then her smallest girl started getting upset over whatever and started ripping posters off of our bulletin board in a fit. Now for reference, we have a big bulletin board so that we can hang community announcements on it, and that was honestly my last straw. I came over and held her hands gently and told her to stop, but the entitled mother comes over and told me to take my hands off of her kid, and so I politely and calmly explained why I was holding her hands and that she can't just rip down our posters. Thumbtacks were falling off, and again, I didn't want anybody getting hurt. This really upset her. She told me to just leave her alone and that she would calm down soon enough. So I told her again, your daughter cannot rip posters off of our bulletin board. But right after I said that, the thumbtacks were still flying off of it. She then screamed at me, something about how I'm not a parent and I'd never understand, and something about my generation being so weak and stupid. She then gathered her kids and then left the store. Now, I'm not one to take yelling easily, and I don't like yelling in general, and I have some past experiences if you catch my drift, but honestly, I was really shaken up after this, and overall, this interaction was incredibly weird. Yeah, that entitled mother was being really dumb. The fact that she tried to pull the card of, oh, you're not a parent, you don't understand how hard it is, in my opinion is such a cop-out it's not even funny, because in reality, she's never done anything to try and give her kids any kind of discipline. She's never punished them or reprimanded them in some kind of way. She hasn't trained them how to act in public and how you can't start ripping things off the wall or start horsing around in public and breaking stuff or anything like that. Instead, she has let her kids train her. Their stupid tantrums have become a way of life, and they can now get away with whatever they want. And that's not a result of the kids acting up. That's the result of this entitled mother not training her kids, making this entire situation her fault. And for her to turn around and be like, wow, get your hands off my child. It's like, lady, your kid's gonna cut herself or hurt herself in some kind of way, all because you're not watching her properly. Like if I was working there, I would have done the same thing, even if it was just to block the kid from ripping posters off the wall. So yeah, the entitled mom in this story was being super weird. You did a really good job of trying to keep things at bay, but clearly this entitled Karen of a mother had different plans, and unfortunately, you just happened to be caught in the crossfire. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled university refuses to allow any of our meal plan options to roll over to the next semester, so I decided to maliciously comply by bringing dozens of homeless people into my university to use up all of my meal plan points as a fantastic and wholesome way of getting revenge. Here's what happened. So this happened my freshman year of college about 20 years ago. My university had just invested in a big new dining hall, and to help pay for their investment, they required all new students to buy a $150 meal plan for both semesters. Now this was a big financial burden being from a lower middle class family, but my parents pulled funds to help me out and make it happen. Shortly into my first semester, I found out from friends that the meals you didn't use didn't roll over. Since I lived off campus, I knew that I would not be able to use them all. Heading into November, I realized I would end up with about 60 to 75 meals left over, and I complained about this a lot to my family and friends because it seemed like such a waste. But this is where my plan comes into to play. My freshman year of college was also my cousin's senior year, and we hung out pretty often. He was the biggest trickster and prankster type that you've ever met. One night while we were drinking, he says to me the following: "What if you brought a bunch of homeless people to use up all of your leftover meals? I bet that would upset those self-righteous jerks so much it would be great." We laughed all night about it, but the more I thought about the idea, the more I really started to like it. We talked all weekend about it and hatched a plan. On Monday morning, we went down to the local Salvation Army around the corner. Now, I have grown to really despise this organization, but in the early 2000s in small-town USA, it's simply what we had. We told the lady at the desk I would love to feed people in need with my meal plan. She was hesitant at first, but ended up saying that she was working with people that this would be a huge blessing to, especially during the holiday season. She helped me organize 2 days the following week where about 30 people would meet me to eat at the dining hall. I would wear a certain hat so they could find me, and we would then go out to eat. The day finally arrived and all kinds of people were there. There were homeless people in tattered clothing. There were families with kids that seemed excited to eat out. There was even one family I will always remember that seemed embarrassed to take a handout, but I made an effort to talk to everybody and make them feel welcome. Once 12 o'clock rolled around, we headed to the dining hall. I walked up to the lady at the entrance and I said to him, "These people are with me. They are my friends, and I would like to swipe them in." Now, she did look very confused, but reluctantly she said okay. Now, to say we got every reaction humanly possible would be an understatement. There were staff that were obviously annoyed with the influx of diners. There were students that were laughing. There were students giving me the silent clap. There were snobbish faculty members that seemed to be disgusted at the type of people coming into the dining hall. But you know what? I didn't care at all. Eventually, a head staff member came up and said that they knew what I was doing and they didn't like it. I said to them, "These are my friends eating with me. I paid for these meals. Am I doing anything wrong?" And when I said that, she was completely stumped. The next day, the same situation happened with the same reactions. It seemed that I had caused quite a stir on campus, and it just so happened that the university president was eating there that day. She came up to me and said that even though she would ask that I not tell my friends to do the same thing with their meals, as the staff couldn't handle the influx of diners, she was proud that her students had the heart to do something for others like that. The following semester, I did the exact same thing. I even used my meals sparingly so I could bring in more people. The one memory that will always stick out in my head is the family with the little kids so excited to go to the pizza bar, as well as wanting to go to the soft serve ice cream machine, giggling the entire time. To this day, it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. My friends and I and my family still have a drink and chuckle over the story, as well as the annoyed, angry reactions I got as a result. That is honestly a really good and wholesome way of getting back at this university. First off, why on earth would your meals not roll over to the next semester? That is seriously such a waste of money. If you're gonna force me to pay, what, $150 for a meal plan? You better allow me to use all the meals whenever I want. And that absolutely should stretch over to both semesters. There's no reason for that not to. That's such a stupid idea. But also, this is like the malicious compliance you want to run into. This was for a good cause. You helped out people in need and you really did make a difference in the community, even though some of the faculty didn't like what you were doing. So good for you for doing the right thing. This was not only a really kind thing to do for the people around you, but it also was a really funny way of sending it right back at the university. My husband has rented a house for me and my baby that is absolutely disgusting and has mold all over the place. And now that we've signed a 1-year lease, we are stuck living here. And I'm so angry and frustrated, I seriously now don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my husband took a new job. It's a work from home job for 4 days a week and 1 day in the office. We knew this job would require us to move from Florida to Georgia, and that was good with us. My husband went to Georgia to look at house rentals while I stayed behind to take care of our baby. I sent him a list of homes that looked great online and asked him to check those out and pick a clean, safe space for us to live. And that was legitimately the only thing I requested of him. Well, my baby and I arrive in Georgia to find this rental is absolutely disgusting. The walls are dirty, and the baseboards in some areas are practically black. There are roaches everywhere, there's mold under the sinks, there's broken floorboards in almost every room. The house is a dump, and I don't know how an active 1-year-old can possibly safely live here. I walked into this place, I looked at this dump, and I immediately cried. It's been 3 days, and I'm still in disbelief that he thought this would be an acceptable place for us to live. I feel stupid for trusting his bad judgment. When he came to look at houses in person, he only did a 5-minute walkthrough and thought that this was fine. To say he doesn't have an eye for detail is a huge understatement. He never inspected deeper to see any of the problems. And now we've signed a 1-year lease and we're completely stuck here. I've already called and emailed the property manager company just to try and see if they can fix this, and I'm honestly praying it happens. I completely blame my husband for not doing his due diligence or even caring enough to make sure that this house is safe for his baby. I don't know how I will ever get past this with him. The anger I feel about this decision he has made is really hard to get past. I've cried myself to sleep, I've yelled at him, I've threatened to go back to Florida to stay with my family. I mean, how can I forgive this and try and move forward? I am still so angry at him for putting our family in this mess. I should have never trusted him to find a safe, clean space for us to live in, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so either your husband didn't care about where you guys lived, or he's a complete idiot and he's blind. Because seriously, how could he miss all of this? There are literally roaches on the floorboards are disgusting, there's black mold all over the place. Like, this guy just didn't even look this place over in the slightest. He probably just halfway did it and said, okay, this place is good, and then signed the lease without even thinking about it. That is honestly so disappointing, and that's so unfair. I know if I was in your shoes, I would be super furious. And even worse, you have a baby in your life. And I don't know about you, but I definitely do not want my baby around black mold. That sounds absolutely disgusting, and seriously, that's not okay. So honestly, I would go to the property manager and see if they can fix this as soon as possible. Also, I would check the laws in your area, because I'm pretty sure what the property manager is advertising is completely illegal. Like, having black mold in your property and then allowing a family with a baby to rent that place not only sounds super sketchy, but is also probably illegal in some kind of way. But honestly, with all things considered, your anger is completely justified, and in this situation, your husband is absolutely the only one to blame. I'm convinced that my friend may have cheated on her boyfriend last night, and now I'm considering calling her boyfriend and telling him exactly what happened. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so my best friend and I went together to a live sporting event last night. 3 weeks ago, her long-term boyfriend moved a few states away from us, and next week she is joining him. She was my friend before I met him, but I really like her boyfriend and have been nothing but supportive of their move because I think they make an amazing couple. Tonight, we were gifted tickets to a live sports event. We pre-gamed together, I drove us there, and we made plans with mutual friends to meet them at a local bar after the game. Our original plan was to crash on our mutual friend's couch after the bar because our mutual friend lives right behind the bar that we were going to. But the real problem started once we got to the bar. Her old hookup was there. We'll call him James. James is not his real name. I had actually hung out with her and her boyfriend and James previously. There was no animosity between any of us previously when her boyfriend was still there, so I really didn't mind all of us having drinks with James. So we just had a few shots together and chatted with James. But when the bar was closing, she let me know she wasn't going back to our mutual friend's place, but instead she was going to James's apartment. Unfortunately, I was very drunk, so I didn't argue with her on this decision. I woke up at our mutual friend's apartment, and now it's hitting me that they probably hooked up. I'm way closer to her than him, but I still really like and respect him a lot. She's not awake yet, but I'm still not sure what to do. Would it be best for me to say something like, you need to tell him what happened or I will? Or should I give him a call and tell him what happened? I'm so scared because they've both been my best friends this past year, and I know this will separate all of us. I don't have many friends, and I know this will break us apart, and honestly at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I think first off, you need to really determine if anything actually happened between your friend and James. Like, obviously this does look super sketchy, and yes, your friend does need to tell her boyfriend about what happened, but you really need to figure out if something sketchy happened first. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would try and insert myself into this relationship. Like, think about how messy that would be. Imagine calling this person's boyfriend and being like, wow, your girlfriend went to James's house last night. Did you know about that? Like, you don't have a complete picture of what's happened yet. There's literally no clues about whether they spent any kind of quality time together or if she even stayed at his place at all. What if she went back to James's house and decided to stay at a hotel or something like that? What if she did go there and then got a taxi and went home or something like that? What I'm saying is that there's so much nuance to this story, you literally don't have the full picture yet. So I honestly would not jump to some kind of conclusion just because you think that something happened. Now, if you get some kind of confirmed information from your friend, then yeah, maybe it's time to be like, hey, you need to talk to your boyfriend. And only then would I feel more inclined to get involved. But even then, if I was in this situation, I would still feel super hesitant about getting involved and getting between this. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would personally be trying to get more information before I jump to any conclusions, because any number of things could have happened last night. And I really think involving yourself in this situation situation, especially without all the details in place, would seriously be a massive misstep. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for cussing out a woman on the bus, as well as making her look stupid, after she decides to come at me and my friend on the bus? Here's what happened. So I'm a 21-year-old female, and I recently found out that I am 2 months pregnant. And although I am very excited, the way I found out was really scary. I have an aggressive vasovagal syncope, which just means I faint from time to time because my body is now under constant stress. Other women who have this, they will pass out for 15 to 20 seconds. I, however, have been passing out for longer, and this came off as very concerning. I live in New York, so the trains and buses have seats meant for the disabled and elderly or even pregnant women. And because I'm only 2 months along and not showing, my doctor ordered me to have a bracelet that has a tag that says I have a fainting disorder. I also have a bright red pack with paperwork for me in case I faint on the street and someone needs to call 911. Now, around 2 days ago, I was on a bus with a friend, and when I got on it, it was fairly empty. So I sat down at the very front of the bus where the priority seating chairs are, with my friend standing near me. This specific seat is right behind the driver and has the priority seating sticker right above it. A few stops into my ride, the bus had gotten packed with people. Then a woman got on the bus, and I'm gonna call her Karen. Karen got on the bus and stood near me, leaning on the wall between me and the other seats. At one point, she even sat on my lap, and I lightly pushed her off of me and I said, "Ma'am, could you not sit on me? I do not know you." She didn't say anything, but she did move to the other side of me, and my friend could tell that she was doing it on purpose. At one point, the bus came to an abrupt stop, and this Karen acted like she had no control over herself and used this as an opportunity to shove my friend to the floor and throw her entire body weight on me, elbowing me in the tummy in the process. So I shoved her off of me onto the floor and told my friend that she hit my stomach. The entitled Karen got up from the floor cursing me out, screaming at me that she clearly needed the seat more and that I should give it to her because it's priority seating. My friend then said, "So instead of expressing that through words, you decide to try and sit on a pregnant woman while also throwing your body on her and elbowing her in the stomach. Have you lost your mind?" The entitled Karen then says back, "She's not pregnant, she's just a lazy jerk." Now, when she said that to me, I got mad, and I showed off the bracelet that says I have a fainting disorder. I said to her, "Lady, I am pregnant, you absolute moron, and I need to sit down because my pregnancy makes me pass out. The fact that you acted like a child and decided to assault me instead of using your words like a big girl obviously makes you a jerk. Now please, get lost, you absolutely rancid loser." She stood in front of me like she was going to hit me, and my friend got in her face and said, "I dare you, please give me a reason to tase you." The woman eventually got off at the next stop, but pushed my friend on the way out. I went to the hospital because the pain did not subside, and thankfully the baby and I are both alright. My friend and I were telling our other friends about this, and some were on our side, but others said I was a jerk because I was only 2 months pregnant and not showing that I was pregnant. So this person had no way of knowing. I personally don't think that makes the way she acted okay, so clearly I need some outside perspective here. Am I the jerk for this situation, as well as cussing out this woman for the way she treated me? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk here. Your friends are completely wrong. Honestly, how can anyone take that lady's side? She came on that bus and was acting incredibly sketchy from the get-go. I mean, she tried to sit on your lap at one point. That is an immediate red flag, and I would have done the same thing. If someone tries to sit on me, I'm gonna push them off and be like, "Excuse me, I don't know you, get off of me." And that's also just really bad manners in general. Like, this lady seriously couldn't have gone and sat literally anywhere else, or even just sat next to the original poster like a normal human being. Like, is that seriously that hard to do? And then the fact that she purposefully threw her body weight all over you and elbowed you in the stomach, that very clearly wasn't an accident. And I know if I was in your shoes and if I was in that situation, I would have called the police and told the bus driver, "Hey, we gotta figure this out. This lady just straight up elbowed me in the stomach, and I'm not about to take that sitting down." And also, here's the thing. In my opinion, if someone really wants to mess around, then they have every right to also find out what's gonna happen when they do that. So the fact that this lady was getting up in your face and trying to act like, "Oh no, you're not actually pregnant, you're just faking it, you're just lazy," as well as all the myriad of other things she said to you, in my opinion, that's when the gloves come off and you have every right to defend yourself and put her in her place. Because think about the opposite of this situation. If you tried to be nice to her and placate her demands and stand up and get out of the way or anything like that, you very easily could have passed out and injured yourself and your baby. And that's not fair for you or anybody else involved. So in this situation, the way you and your friend handled this is absolutely appropriate. inappropriate. I absolutely would have reacted the exact same way, especially with someone who's being super weird and super threatening towards me. So no, of course not. You are definitely not the jerk. You defended yourself against some crazy lady who clearly had ill intentions. And personally, I would much rather have somebody think that I'm rude instead of me just letting it go and potentially getting injured even more. An entitled Karen demands that I follow her home and hand deliver a tree that she had just bought at our garden nursery. But despite me telling her that I can't follow her home to deliver something personally, she refuses to take no for an answer and even escalates this in a way that I honestly never saw coming. And I am now completely blown away by her entitlement, and I honestly hope she never comes back to our nursery ever again. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that this happened a few days ago and I still can't believe it. I'm a 25-year-old male and I work at a garden nursery. It's a decent size with a shop in the middle and outdoor plants on benches and racks around it, while also having a car park, which is where our entitled Karen and her brother come into play. They drove into our nursery as the owner was walking along it. They beeped at him and started yelling at him, claiming that he had sold them a dead tree to try and plant and make it sprout. And honestly, when I heard that, I was totally confused, and this really was not a good start to my day. They park and walk around for a bit. The brother asks me all sorts of questions and is wanting discounts on plants and starts to basically interrogate me about my life and what I'm doing for work, which I just start giving yes or no answers without actually telling the truth. Eventually, I finally get rid of him and I start walking through, checking that no plants need water. The entitled Karen then spots me and starts to yell at me from about 80 meters away. Now, some people do this, and I go to them even though it annoys me that they basically are calling me like a dog. Maybe they are handicapped and it's hard for them to walk or something like this, but this lady barely speaks English and is currently rambling something at me. And I keep asking her to repeat herself, but finally, I eventually understand that she wants to buy a tree. And the tree she wants to buy is a big weeping cherry. It's about 3 meters tall, including the pot, which is about 90 liters of soil, and it's really heavy. I take the price and I walk with her to the shop, where I ask her if she would like this to be delivered to her home. Now, we have a big truck for deliveries, and it goes out once a week. We never do free deliveries. They don't cost that much money, and the cost is mostly just to cover fuel and time for the driver. Anyways, she says that she doesn't want it delivered, but instead she just points at her SUV. I think to myself, there is no way that tree and massive pot is ever gonna fit in that car. But okay, whatever. I go ahead and I put the sale through. I get the tree trolley and bring the tree to her car. Her brother is in the driver's seat, and she goes and gets into the back seat of the car and just sits there. So I say to her, where do you want me to put it? She then says something to me that honestly blew my mind. She says to me, you can put it in your car and you can follow me. And when she said that, I was thinking to myself, what is she talking about? And it was right about then that things started to really go south. This entitled Karen then repeated herself again. And at this point, I just laughed and I said, what on earth are you talking about? But she just kept repeating it louder and louder. I told her, no, I'm not delivering this tree. You said you don't want it delivered and didn't pay for the delivery. She then said to me, well, I didn't know I needed to pay. How much is it anyways? So I asked her where this tree would be going, and she eventually said it's a suburb about 15 minutes away. So I told her the price, and she said to me, okay, follow me home and I'll pay you then. But I just said, no, that's not how it works. And instead, it would be delivered on Friday when she pays, and that we need to go back inside and get this sale going. After some more time of yelling instructions at me and talking to her brother in another language, I put the tree next to the shop, and she came up to keep yelling at me to deliver the tree and that she would pay me when I followed her home. And at this point, I was done. I yelled at her in the same tone that she had been yelling at me. I said to her, I can't. My car cannot fit that tree. Only the company truck can deliver this. I also can't drive the truck. It is literally impossible for me to deliver the tree, even if I wanted to. And guess what? I really don't want to. After a bit more, she finally realized it wasn't going to happen. Now, this entitled Karen had this really weird thing, as did her brother, where they would not talk or interact with the female staff members. So when I took her inside and the other owner was at the register, she literally would not talk to her. I told the owners what was happening and that this lady needed to organize a delivery, and then I just went and walked off. This lady then screams at me, excuse me, and because I was going, I spun around and I snapped back. I said to her, she will get your delivery details, she can help you out. Well, this entitled Karen basically just walked off back to her car, and they just started driving off. We had no delivery payment, we had no number, we didn't even have an address or even her name. I had to run out to their car and stop them. She wouldn't give me her address, and when she finally did, when I looked it up on Google Maps, it simply didn't exist. So this lady had literally paid for a tree and we had no way to get it to her. The following day, the brother rings up wanting to know about the delivery. At this point, it's Thursday and it's a day before our deliveries. I had told the work group chat what had happened, so everybody knew what was going on if these people came back. Anyways, one of our female staff members answered the phone and tells this guy everything I said and how they need to pay before we can deliver it. He simply wouldn't listen to her, but instead he kept interrupting her and just straight up complaining. It ended up with her telling him to basically get lost and then hanging up. Now, she did this because she thought that we could refund their credit card and never serve them ever again. However, they paid in cash, so another staff member had to call them back, smooth all of this over again, and have him come back in with his van and collect the tree. And honestly, I really hope they never come back. Wow, those people are seriously insane. Like, the way they interacted with customer service was so unacceptable. In my opinion, customer service goes both ways. You have to not only be good with customers, but for the customer themselves, you need to show some semblance of respect for the people who are serving you. Otherwise, you can't expect to get anything done. I can't stand when people act like this and they're shouting at you, they're refusing to listen, and they're demanding that you do it their way. All of that just adds up to a complete headache and something that nobody ever wants to deal with. So for the sake of your store and everybody else in it, I also hope these people never come back either. Because seriously, these people sound like a piece of work. And I know if I was in that situation, I would have wanted to walk away and tell them off as well. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk refuses to give me his ID so that I can complete his purchase of cigarettes, but instead he decides to make a big scene and an absolute fool of himself, causing my coworkers and I to bust up about his stupidity. Here's what happened. So at the grocery store that I work at, our policy is that you have to have an ID for all purchases of cigarettes. If your ID is a driver's license or a state ID, we have to scan the back of it. Well, on this night, I'm running the front end, but currently watching the service desk as well, which is where we keep all of our cigarettes. And lo and behold, a customer comes up to the desk wanting to buy cigarettes. I've interacted with this guy before and he's a pain to deal with, so I already know that this is going to be a rough one. I scan the cigarettes on the register and I ask for his identification. He pulls out his wallet but doesn't take his license out of the holder. I tell him that I need to scan the back of it, and he says that he can't take it out and tells me to just manually enter the date. I tell him that I can't do that because I need to scan the back of it. He says to type the date in again, and I say no again. He then says that he wants to talk to the manager. Now, the store manager is not there, so I page the assistant manager up and let him deal with this guy. The guy talks to him and the assistant manager backs me up, telling him that I need to scan the back of it. This weird guy then proceeds to go off on him, and then he starts to go off on this stupid rant about some dumb stuff. He claims that for his ID, he would pull it out for a state trooper, but he wouldn't pull it out for us, which is him effectively saying that he was lying to me when he said that he couldn't take it out earlier. He also said that whenever he goes to a different store, they type the date in and it's no problem, to which we all wondered why he didn't just go over there and get cigarettes. And then he said that us scanning his ID was infringement on his rights. He ended his rant by threatening to sue us and then storming out of the store, and then we just laughed and went about our business. Now, I know what you're thinking. This has to be it, right? Well, unfortunately, no, because this guy clearly wanted more. About 45 minutes later, we get a phone call. The desk clerk picks it up, and it's from a customer wanting to talk to the store manager. The assistant manager has left, so she pages up our nighttime person in charge, who just so happened to witness the previous interaction. They come up, pick up the phone, listen for a minute, then they point at me and mouth, "This is your guy." Yes, the guy called the store to further complain, claiming that I had singled him out, which is really weird because this guy was throwing a temper tantrum while also being the only customer at the desk. And I guess with that in mind, you probably would draw attention to yourself. This moron then went on to say how I asked him for his ID about 4 times just to try and scan the back of it, and now he wanted to make an appointment with the manager. So the manager's name was given off, while also telling him when the next time our manager would be in the store. And after we hung up the phone, we laughed some more and just went back to work. Fast forward, and when I came back the next day, I asked if anyone had called complaining about me, but they said no. So I guess this weird guy eventually just gave up. Yeah, that guy clearly had some issues. First and foremost, you have to pull your ID out if you want to buy cigarettes. Like, they have to scan the back of it. It's probably like the law where you're from. And if someone seriously can't understand that, then they're the one with the problem. I bet it's one of those point-of-sale systems where the cashier probably couldn't even complete the purchase without scanning the customer's ID in the first place. Like, there's probably so many checks and balances in place just to make sure that nothing nothing slips through the system. And I personally think that's a really good system to have. That way you know you're not giving out any cigarettes to anybody underage. And this guy absolutely knew that. He just wanted to be difficult. I mean, come on, how hard is it to pull out your ID? If this guy really wanted his cigarettes, he would have gone to the other store who just types in his date of birth as well as his other information. Which, by the way, there's a good chance he was just straight up lying. This guy was trying to pull a fast one and he didn't want to conform to the system. So good for you and your assistant manager for having your back. This guy was a complete weirdo. And hopefully for the sake of you and everybody else around you, this guy never comes back ever again. Every day of my job, I get treated like absolute garbage. Customers lie about me and try and scam me out of my tips. And at this point, I'm so completely exhausted and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 20-year-old female and I haven't been socially great in life. And it's mostly because I'm simply just too shy. I was homeschooled for 5 years as a kid and my parents are both introverts. So social skills aren't exactly my forte. I didn't used to hate everything as much as I do now. I'm not mean or anything like that, and I try to be kind and treat others the way I want to be treated. I was made fun of in middle school, like typical middle school stuff. Once I was in later high school, I just kept to myself and avoided all that. I was so glad to graduate and get a job and go to college. College is absolutely awesome. People are so nice and I feel so welcome there. I made friends and I love getting to know my classmates and studying together and just talking. However, my work life hasn't been as good. At almost every job I've had, someone decides they don't like me and bothers me until I quit. I'll be exhausted and customers will complain I'm not friendly enough and I'm being disrespectful because I may have asked them to repeat themselves if I couldn't hear them. It's so demanding and annoying. It's like high school garbage but on steroids with fully grown adults. People play favorites for no reason. People spin garbage to get you in trouble. Customers complain just to get free stuff. I mean, I had a job where the customers were so nice and it was so easy to be nice to them, but now it's so exhausting. Everyone is so mean. Everyone says maybe I'm the problem. And yeah, maybe I do suck at my job. I've always had coworkers who take my side and reassure me, but it's so hard to feel like I do okay when I have a million voices telling me differently. I told a woman the other day that a promotion we were running is over, and instead we have a different promotion going on. And I was super nice about it, and I tried to help her in any way that I could, but she wrote a review about how I wasn't personable. One thing that irritates me beyond end is how people just don't communicate with me. Even though I'm their server, I will check on them multiple times, and they'll say, yeah, it's great, thank you. And then at the end of their meal, they scream for the manager and then complain, and then they stiff me a tip. Like seriously, I checked on you, and you said it was great, and you ate the entire meal. How was I supposed to know you weren't happy? At this point, I become so bitter. I just don't care anymore. And as you can tell, I become so upset at everyone and everything. I'm sick of being told to smile. It's so easy to smile when they're kind and normal. My personal issue is it's hard to hide my anxiety and be chipper when someone is so rude to me. I'll be calm and composed, but then they complain about my personality. Most of my coworkers and managers say I'm sweet and I'm appreciated, but working customer service for 4 years has drained me. When I'm at school or at home, I'm myself, but when I clock in, I feel like a zombie. I just feel so drained, but tuition and gas don't pay for themselves, so I guess I'll just have to keep fake smiling for now, even though my work life really sucks. Honestly, I completely understand where you're coming from. Working customer service across the board can really suck. You deal with entitled Kevins and Karens all day. You deal with people trying to treat you like garbage just to get their way. You're gonna find people trying to scam you and get you in trouble on purpose. And sometimes it's all just for no legitimate reason in the slightest. Maybe they're having a bad day, so guess what? You're gonna have a bad day as well. And that's not fair at all. Like, that literally is so unfair for you. You work so hard to do a good job. You try your very best to be a good customer service worker, only to then get stabbed in the back by coworkers as well as customers alike. And trust me, I completely understand where you're coming from. I know one trick that really worked for me when I was more involved in customer service is just to take the stance that, you know what, none of these people know me and they definitely have no idea the struggles I go through every day. Their bad attitude is not a reflection of my customer service. I know that I'm doing a good job because, you know what, my manager and my coworkers say I am. And those are honestly the only people I need to impress. So when a customer comes in and they're treating you like garbage, just remember that it's all on them. It's not on you. They are clearly the ones with a problem. And honestly, no matter how hard you work, someone is always going to be upset. Am I the jerk for changing my plans last minute and abandoning my daughter and her husband after they invited themselves on my vacation with my wife for our 40th anniversary? Here's what happened. My wife and I have always dreamed of celebrating our 40th anniversary with a luxurious luxurious vacation. Just the two of us reliving the romance of our early years. We had it all planned out for years now, and we were excited beyond words. Well, enter our adult daughter by the name of Jane. Jane and her husband caught wind of our plans and promptly invited themselves and their 2 children along. They have a 9-year-old female and a 5-year-old male. I originally put my foot down and told them that this trip was just for us, which did upset her some. But my wife has a hard time saying no to Jane, as she is the youngest of our children and our only daughter, and she didn't want to hurt her feelings, so she reluctantly agreed to let them join. I wasn't thrilled about it at the time, but I wanted to make my family happy, and I knew my wife was also okay with the idea of a family trip. Even if she was heartbroken we wouldn't get our romantic trip, so we just went along with it. The place we were originally going was not child-friendly, so we changed course and decided on an all-inclusive, family-friendly resort. We paid for the resort and our grandchildren's plane tickets. Jane and her husband only had to pay for their own airfare. Now here's where things get a little bit complicated. As the vacation got closer, I started having a change of heart. I realized that our 40th anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime milestone, and I wanted to honor it in a way that was true to our original plans. My wife and I might not be able to afford a trip like this again for quite some time, and it's something that we always wanted to do. So without consulting anybody, I switched our tickets last minute to go to the romantic destination that my wife and I had originally planned for. I did not tell Jane or her husband. I didn't even tell my wife until the day before our flight left, which was a day before Jane's flight left for their vacation. It wasn't an easy decision, and I feel incredibly guilty about it, but I wanted our 40th anniversary to be special. I wanted it to be the intimate celebration we had always hoped for. We called Jane after we landed to tell her, and she was extremely upset to say the least. She thought of the idea that we were going to look after our grandkids so she and her husband could have some alone time, and now that I abandoned her, they would have to do it all themselves. I hung up on them when my son-in-law started shouting, and my wife and I just enjoyed the rest of our trip. They came back the same day we did, but have not answered any of our text messages, and Jane seems to be completely ignoring me. My wife told me she vastly preferred our trip to the family trip that we would have taken, but she still doesn't like how Jane is mad at us and wants me to apologize. But you know what? I'm not sure I want to, after learning that Jane and her husband were using us for free babysitting and a free trip, but I do feel like I should just keep the peace. So am I the jerk for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves? What should I do? You are not the jerk at all. This is honestly so hilarious to me because clearly Jane and her husband had ulterior motives. They thought they had free babysitters for a vacation that they had already imposed upon. Like they literally invited themselves. How much of a dirtbag do you have to be to do that on someone else's vacation? Not to mention the fact that they weren't going to watch their kids at all. They were going to throw them at you and your wife and be like, okay, you're going to watch them while we enjoy your 40th anniversary. Like, no, I don't think so. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. There's no way I would have gone on that vacation, and I would have done it the exact same way as well. Like, look, I get it. You should have said no the first time and left it at that. Let them feel bad, let them be angry, whatever. But you know what? With all things considered, you had to do exactly what you needed to do so that your wife and yourself could enjoy your time together. So no, you're not the jerk. Jane and her husband are clearly incredibly selfish, and going on that vacation with them would have been a massive mistake. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she's no longer invited to our house after she slowly but surely tried to take over our guest bedroom? Here's what happened. So I'm a 27-year-old female and my husband is also 27, and we got married a year back. We had been dating for 10 years and most of his family knew about us. I went to his sister's wedding because I was invited and it was a nice experience. I have grown up to be very social and career-oriented and really valued education. My husband is the same, and that's how we really connected with each other. My sister-in-law, however, has a different mindset. She got married at a very young age and chose to have a family while also choosing not to pursue a college degree. However, she is a complete brat and has always been said yes for everything. For example, she had a 3-day wedding in Italy with over 120 guests. She doesn't hate me but doesn't love me either. And trust me, the feelings are mutual. We just don't connect. We recently got a new house and threw a housewarming party for all of his family, and everyone loved the house. We have an extra guest bedroom just in case, and his sister absolutely loved the house, which she said about 50 times, and said that she would move some of her daughter's stuff here in the extra room because we have too much space and she doesn't want to carry it whenever she comes. Now, we live in New York and she comes from New Mexico. I really didn't get the logic logic and politely declined and said we have a lot of guests coming every now and then and we do not have spare space for her daughter's clothing or her toys. Now, she wasn't happy about that, but honestly, I didn't care. It's been 4 months since we bought the house and she's come a total of 53 days. And yes, I absolutely kept count. Most of the time, she comes unannounced, claiming that she was visiting someone or she was in the neighborhood. I mean, what kind of person would fly from New Mexico to New York just to be in the neighborhood? Anyways, I slowly started to realize that she had started putting up her pictures and redecorating our guest bedroom, and I honestly lost my mind when I saw this. I told my husband and he said I'm overthinking it and that she is just trying to be friends with me. When she left last week, I packed a box of all of her things, which she very conveniently forgot in our guest bedroom, and I shipped it over to her place. She got very angry and eventually called me and started screaming at me. I told her to stop overreacting and stop considering our house as hers and that she's no longer welcome to come over. I told my husband everything and that I would not entertain her anymore. He agreed to what I had said and told his sister that she needs to stop doing this or she is no longer going to be welcome. Well, she called my in-laws and literally every person that we know and told them that we were being jerks. Our phones have been buzzing with text messages and calls with everybody saying how inconsiderate we are and that what we did was really wrong. But I told everyone if they're seriously that interested, they need to keep her in their house and stop bothering me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your sister-in-law is being weird. She's coming to your house uninvited, and it seems like she's slowly taking over that guest bedroom, all without trying to discuss it with you first. That is really weird in my opinion. Now, I don't know if she's in some kind of distress situation or anything like that, but regardless of the circumstance, it really is inappropriate for her to be acting that way. Like, you don't just do that to somebody else's house. You have no right to do that, and honestly, you need to ask people first. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. After all, this is your house, and if she doesn't like it, then she can stay with another family member instead of trying to force her way into your house. An entitled Karen goes into a rampage in the Target parking lot after I called her out for not putting her shopping cart away, and I've never seen a crazier person act more insane in my life. Here's what happened. So this happened a few months ago. I was coming out of Target mid-morning on a weekday. I noticed two adult women standing by the passenger side of their vehicle, which is a large SUV. The SUV was parked in the very first spot in the row, but the row was off to the side of the entrance. There were 2 spaces between their vehicle and mine. The cart return was 2 spaces over to the right of my vehicle, on the other side of my vehicle from the SUV. One of the women, the younger one, was putting a toddler in a car seat, with the older lady standing there talking to the younger one. And these are the entitled Karens of this story. As I'm walking up to my vehicle, I noticed the older one push their cart to the middle of the parking spot next to her and then try to leave it. Now, I have to admit, not putting your cart away is a pet peeve of mine. It is one of these small, low-stakes things that I think will show someone's true character. Even still, I didn't say anything for a minute because I thought she might still put it away, but she still didn't, and it quickly became clear that they were about to leave as they were getting in the car and putting on their seatbelts. So I decided to play my part and say something to the Karen. I rolled my window down to get her attention, and I said to her, "Hi there, you forgot to put your cart away." And I said this in a friendly voice because I was trying to give her an out so she could be like, "Oh, I forgot," or something like that if she wanted. But that's not what she said at all, because what happened next honestly blew my mind. She said to me, "If it's so important to you, why don't you just do it yourself?" I said to her, "Okay, well, if you're not gonna do it, then I will." I then turned my car off and started getting out to do just that. So I get out and I get the cart, and that's when they called me a Karen. I said to them, "Sure, you leave your stuff out for other people to deal with, all because you can't be bothered, but yeah, I'm the Karen." As I say this, I'm pushing the cart out from between our cars to literally take it over to the cart corral thing on the other side of my vehicle. As I come out from between the vehicles, the employee collecting the carts comes by and takes it from me on his way to the corral. I turn and walk back, and at this point, all of a sudden, the older Karen starts screaming at me, "My husband got carjacked a month ago, you absolute jerk." Now, I gotta be honest here. It was kind of crazy how she went from just talking garbage to me to suddenly being red-faced and screaming like that in just an instant. So I told her that literally had nothing to do with returning a cart. Then they both started yelling that I don't have anything better to do than to hang out in parking lots and yell at people. And honestly, this made me laugh, because literally, weren't we all in a parking lot? As I'm laughing, I said to them, "Give me a break, I'm here shopping just like you were." At this point, I start walking back to get into my vehicle, and their last shot at me was to scream, "Why don't you go save a
the kitten since you're so great.
I then told him, well, I guess I'd have to, since we clearly know that you wouldn't be bothered. But as they were driving away, I got in one last remark. I said to them, sorry you got caught for being an awful person. They then flipped me off and drove away. And I've honestly never been more confused by an interaction with a Karen in my life. Yeah, those Karens seriously had some problems. Like, I am right there with the original poster. There's very little excuse that anyone couldn't put their card away. Like, seriously, it is not that hard to do. Just take it and put it back. It doesn't take that much, and honestly, it really is low effort. But when it comes to calling out these Karens for not putting it back, you are way braver than I am. I would have just judged them silently instead of confronting them and saying, hey, you gotta put your cart back, right? I am definitely not that brave, and there's no way I would be caught doing that. So honestly, good for you for having the guts to try and say something, because I know if I was in that situation, I definitely would have kept my mouth shut and just kept walking. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen tries to pick a fight at the store I work at, all because she was not charged the proper amount for the laptop that she wanted. And I'm honestly so blown away by her entitlement. Here's what happened. So I work at a store that sells electronics and stationery, and as today was the start of the new flyer, I spent most of the day running around trying to make sure that the prices of our products reflected the changeover properly. And that's basically what I was doing throughout the course of what happened. And also, because it does come up later, I am a key holder. While I was scanning signs in another aisle, I heard a page through the headset radios that a woman needed help buying a laptop, which is where our tech guy comes into the story. Now, the first real indication that Karen was going to be a problem happened right after she told him that she was looking for a laptop and wasn't sure which one would suit her needs. And when he tried to guide her to a specific laptop that he had in mind and she refused, she said the following: how about you start walking and I'll follow you? You do not get to tell me where I'm supposed to go. Eventually, he took her to a section of the store where we had Chromebook laptops on display. I wasn't paying that much attention to what was being said after that. That is, until she asked a very bizarre question. She said to the tech guy, okay, so this laptop is $250. Do you think I would be able to live off of $250 for the rest of the month? Now, keep in mind, this is the 11th of October, so we're only just getting into the middle of the month. The tech guy said, I don't know. Then the entitled Karen fired back. She said, why not? How could you not know? So the tech guy explained, well, because I don't know you well enough to make that kind of assumption. But the Karen keeps going on with her weird line of questioning. She says, well, I can tell just by looking at you that you would not be able to live off of $250 in a single month. So do you think that I would? Now, at this point, the tech guy just refused to answer the question. And after a little bit more of back and forth, the subject changes finally. I just continue working, trying to mind my own business, but I still managed to catch something that kind of made me stop in my tracks. I'm not sure what the context of the comment was, and even after asking him, I still don't really get what was happening, but she said something about him being a slave or something like that, which really made me start listening again, but I don't know how it connected with what she said next. She then goes on this really weird tirade. She says, so God made 4 seasons, but we split those seasons into 12. Do you know why? Just to hurt him. That's why. And then she started attacking a very specific religious group for literally no reason. Now, at this point, with this amount of crazy going on, to his credit, the tech guy just refused to engage or to even give an opinion on what she was saying. We did exchange a look between each other when the Karen wasn't looking, and I could tell just by that alone that he was trying so very hard to keep it together. He had only been working at the store for about 3 months now, and while we don't normally chat very often, I knew he was a very chill guy. After a few minutes of this, the entitled Karen, I guess, gave up because she just kind of sighed in a dismissive tone. The Karen then says, so I think I've decided to get this laptop, so go ahead and get it for me. At this point, I kind of wanted to know what this woman's deal was. In particular, the part where she called him a slave for some reason. So when he went up to page for a manager, I piped up that I was available and took him to our lockup area to pick up the laptop that she wanted to buy. I then said to the tech guy, dude, what is up with that woman? Did she really just call you a slave? But the tech guy said, no, not really. But I don't think I actually understood anything of what she was saying. She just kept jumping topics. But I think I'm going to take the laptop to one of the cash registers and get one of the cashiers to cash her out. So as he was leaving the lockup area, I, deciding to be helpful, called the cashier over the radio to let her know exactly what was going on and that the laptop should be reaching her very shortly. But after a minute, she paged me back and said, I do not think that's happening. Now, when I went back to the floor to investigate, I saw him with his back to me and the lady grilling into him with with a laptop in between the both of them. I guess she just didn't appreciate him telling her to go meet the cashier at the register. Figuring that this guy might need saving, I tried to page for another coworker to take over for him. And I was specifically looking for a manager, just so the tech guy could escape from the situation. And it's right about then that the store manager came over the speaker. Apparently, this entitled Karen had been here before in the store, though it must have been either when I was off shift or on break, because this was the first time I'd ever even heard of her before. The store manager says, "Don't bother. She's not all there, and she won't talk to anyone wearing a mask." Now, for full disclosure, ever since the 2020 virus, I've been masking up because even though most people don't view it as that big of an issue anymore, I refuse to take any chances. And there are also a few people who work with me who also agree with me. Unfortunately, the supervisor, who was also working in the electronics section, is of the same mindset, so neither he nor I could jump in to assist, at least not without making things a lot worse. But I guess she didn't like the way he was cashing her out, because the next time I saw her, about 5 minutes later, the store manager was cashing her out on another register, with the tech guy safely getting away from her. When I talked to him at this point, he was fairly convinced that the stuff she had been saying was just an attempt to try and rile him up, or to at least give her an excuse to kick off about whatever he would have said in response to her questions. But he didn't play her game in the slightest. He did end up asking me if there was some kind of rule that let us refuse service to specific customers, especially ones with Karen's disposition. But as we were chatting, the entitled Karen gets animated with our store manager, blatantly accusing them of improperly counting the bills. And then she found an issue with the price the cash register was showing for her purchase, saying something about it not being right, and this was in response to some theory that she had been talking to the store manager about. At one point, while the entitled Karen was rifling through her bag for something, the store manager kind of wandered over to where me and the tech guy were standing. The store manager then said, "Honestly, I'm ready to process a refund and tell her that she can't come back." I looked at the store manager and I said, "Hey, it's your call, but if you do, I'm behind you 100%. The store manager then said, "She's saying that the registers are wrong and that we're not charging her enough for the laptop. Even after I pulled out a calculator and showed her the math, she says I'm too dependent on the computers to tell that she's right. I mean, you can't tell this woman that she's wrong. She just doesn't get it." After that, the store manager went back to the entitled Karen, who continued to have a problem with the price that she had paid. Finally, she held out a roll of coins that turned out to be nickels and a couple other coins before showing them one by one to the store manager, who says that we won't accept them through. The entitled Karen then leaves in a huff, telling us to give the coins to the Bank of Canada instead. The store manager then put them into a plastic bag and then sent a general message out to all the staff, instructing everyone to only refund what's on the receipt, and especially not what this entitled Karen was claiming she was owed. Now, apparently, this Karen also had a habit of buying from us and then returning the item sometime later within the return window. And after this was explained, the store manager went out for a smoke break. Now, I don't know if my store manager is planning to ban the Karen, and honestly, I hope that they do. If this isn't the first time she's pulled this stuff, then definitely it won't be the last. But from the way that they explained it to me later, they fully expect her to at least attempt to return the laptop. And honestly, I just hope that I'm not here for work when that eventually happens. Yeah, that lady was clearly looking for a fight. Like, she was just straight up talking about nonsense for like 90% of the time. It also really seemed like she was trying to bait out some kind of confrontation or something like that in some kind of way. And that, in my opinion, is super sketchy and really not okay. Like, why would you go to an electronics store and then try to pick a fight with like an hourly worker? These people do not get paid enough to deal with your level of crazy. So truly, for the sake of everybody in this story, hopefully this lady never comes back, because she sounds incredibly crazy, and honestly, I don't think I would ever want to deal with that. My entitled father has treated me awfully my entire life, and now that I'm finally out of his house and I've moved out on my own, I have honestly never been happier. Here's what happened. I'm 20 years old, and I've only ever had my father as a solid parental figure in my life, or as solid as you could possibly get it throughout my childhood. My dad and my mother, who I've never met before, separated when I was too young to remember her, and apparently officially divorced in 2012. She has had zero contact with me, and my dad has not told me anything about her at all. Even if I asked when I was younger, my dad, along with the help of my paternal grandparents, raised me entirely. Throughout my entire life, he was always up and down. When I was a young child, he didn't treat me poorly from what I can remember, but he left to work abroad for over a year without me, and also uprooted my whole life several times because of anything that was happening for him personally. It ranged from moving me from my hometown so that we could live with his girlfriend who I'd never met before, all the way to fully moving moving me from one country to another no matter how much I protested and cried, all because he knew what was best for me while also stating that he was getting a promotion. And this went on for years. Many women entered and left my life, and I've lived in many apartments, none of which I've ever gotten used to enough to even call my home. Back then it felt like a regular thing, but looking back now, it caused me so much stress and emotional imbalance from how turbulent it was. In the last couple of years, he expanded his poor treatment of me into other areas of our lives. Him getting mad at me for missing several phone calls turned into him insulting me and calling me names over not responding to his messages immediately. It also went from him being rarely frustrated straight into him always being angry about the smallest mistakes or actions that I would make. If I folded a towel wrong, he would then be angry at me for 15 minutes. If I didn't wash the dishes, I would then be hit with a series of insults towards me and my character. Also, if I was 15 minutes late coming home, it meant that I would have to deal with a silent treatment for hours. And even in the meantime, he would love bomb me when he could, manipulating me into thinking his bad side wasn't actually that bad because he was otherwise a good parent. And I'm honestly embarrassed to say that it really worked. Jump to present day, and I'm currently sitting on the floor at my girlfriend's house, overthinking my plan for tomorrow. Me, my girlfriend, and her sister will be going to my house, packing up a suitcase or two of things that I cannot part with, and I'm going to be moving in with her, parting ways with my dad for good. That has been the idea since about 2 days ago, and it solidified about an hour ago. He spam called me, and when I didn't pick up, he called me a useless, embarrassing creature, amongst other equally hurtful things. For context, the reason he got angry and called me was because I didn't respond to his message. It's time his actions got consequences, and his arrogant self is about to lose the only child he's ever had. Fast forward a couple of months, and things are difficult to say the least. I am a million times better off in this house where everyone accepts me for who I am as a person, including my ADHD and autism, and where I can set my own boundaries. I would be lying though if I said I don't miss anything about my life before moving. Here are some of the things that have been especially difficult for me to try and adapt to. For starters, I have financially dropped many classes for a lack of a better word. My father was well off because of his work, and he didn't give me much of his wealth as he expected me to earn my own money. But I was living a comfortable life where making certain payments, buying food, or treating myself was never a matter of worry. Now that I live away and without his financial help, in a household of 6 other people where I need to contribute my own money, I find myself counting pennies. Don't get me wrong, I expected this and how hard it was going to be, but I have the right to struggle with accepting and adapting to it. Secondly, this house is very loud and I never have any alone time. As someone who's autistic and has ADHD, having quiet time and some alone time with my own thoughts or to simply rest is really important, especially when processing heavy issues in my life, especially considering the entire endeavor that I've endured. Although my old house had 4 people in it, namely myself, my father, his wife, and her daughter, almost no one in that house was ever home due to work or a social life. But in this house of 6 people, somebody is always at home. In the last 2 months, there have only been 2 instances in which I've been left in the house by myself, and it was only for a few hours. Now, I have no issue with this, truly, and I most often appreciate the company. The only issue arises when I'm feeling mentally poor and I'm having a bad day and I just need the silence and emptiness to try and process things. But because of the noise and all the people, I can't do that. Even then, I obviously don't bring it up as it really is just a personal thing, but if I feel I really need the space, I just take a long walk outside. Also, my girlfriend's little brother is kind of a problem. I love him dearly, he is a sweetheart, but he's heavily on the autistic spectrum, much more than I have to deal with. He's nonverbal, he has no boundaries, and always causes a lot of ruckus around the house, either with his phone or just by being super hyper. Again, 99% of the time, I have no issue with him at all. He's kind and often gentle, and he's actually improving on his communication skills quite quickly, and this has really been a recent development. He's just difficult to deal with sometimes if everyone in the house is stressed out, or even if they're tired, or when he's just being way too loud and causing too much noise. He has a lot of sensory needs and needs a lot of special treatment, as well as a very specific schedule to function and avoid any kind of meltdowns. It's not that big of a disruption to my life at all. It's just a factor to adapt to a little suddenly that I'm kind of struggling with. Also, when it comes to leaving my job and relying on people, as I mentioned before, having autism and ADHD makes this whole change very difficult. And unfortunately, I did have to quit my decently paying job for the sake of my mental health. I was only working part-time, but the line of work which I was in is extremely emotionally and mentally exhausting, and it's really time-consuming. Plus, Plus, it was making the transition of my life absolutely more difficult to cope with, so I decided to leave. This means that even though I've had the luck to save up some money to buy food and other essentials for myself as need be, I've had to rely on either my girlfriend or my two best friends quite a bit. Being someone who through their entire life has helped other people financially because I've been stable, I have found it really hard to ask for help when I need it, not even to mention accepting it when it's been given to me. It comes with a lot of guilt and a feeling as though I've become a burden to the household, even though while I was working, I was contributing about 1/3 of my paycheck to rent, bills, food, and basically whatever we needed. I'm currently looking for work semi-actively right now, but I've been encouraged so far by the people close in my life to take it easy and take as much time off as I need, just so I can get my footing so that I don't end up burning out. Also, as I mentioned before, I dropped out of university. One of the biggest issues I had at home was that I was forced to continue my academics after high school. Now, I have always believed that university is good if you have a path you wish to follow and you are very sure about it. But for those of us who don't really know what they want to do with their life, university just became a stress factor where you aren't fighting for your own education, but rather for the satisfaction of someone else. Whether you're pleasing your parents, which is something I tried to do, or if you're pleasing society or just someone else in general. It's one of those things that will eventually burn you out and make you lose sense of what you actually wish to do. And one of the first things I did when I left was to drop out of university. I am happy I'm no longer forced to learn things I hate and adapt to a pressuring routine on top of trying to work for a living. But hearing all my friends go to university and some of the judgment from them has honestly made me doubt my choice. The transition itself from suddenly not having anything to learn has been a very difficult thing to start adjusting to. But also, finally, I really do miss my dad. And no, I don't mean the entitled piece of garbage that I ran away from, who absolutely treated me awfully for years and destroyed my self-esteem, my dreams, and my sense of self. I miss the man who, when I was little, would bring me back gifts after every long-distance work trip and hug me for hours because I missed him. I miss the man who would take me to my favorite restaurant just so I could have my favorite meal, especially if I came back from school upset. I miss the person who would then let me stay up a little later watching my comfort movie with him. I miss the man who took on several holiday trips when he could and let me explore the world as much as I could, even while I was very young. Someone who would tell me that they were proud of me when I won an art competition or something like that, or if I got a good result on a test of some kind. I miss the man who would make funny faces every time I filmed him for anything because he knew that I found it funny. I just miss my dad, and it's hurting and difficult to forget that the reason I left was because that man no longer existed, and he hadn't existed for a very long time. Now, with all of that being said though, I'm happy that I left when I did. My life was getting to a point where my entire existence was controlled by my dad and his moods. How my day ended depended on when I got home, as well as if he would say welcome back or where in the heck have you been? It would honestly be one or the other. I couldn't dress and be myself because he always had an issue with me being LGBTQ. He would never call me by my preferred name just to demean my existence. His treatment of me depended a lot on my grades in school and in university, and not my personality, my treatment of other people, my way of expression, as well as other things that he really should have been paying attention to. Every little mistake I made was being blown out of proportion. I was simply unhappy. I was very clearly being mistreated, but here I am myself. I'm treated right. I'm greeted with a smile and a hug when I am home. I'm asked about my day and what I'm doing. No one cares that I am no longer in university, and I always get asked if my recent hobby project went well and if I was happy with it. People here are proud of me. They respect me and my boundaries. And honestly, I find myself in a much better place after finally leaving my dad. Wow, what a story. Seriously, it sounds like you've been through a lot of stuff in your life. You had a dad who treated you awful all of a sudden, and it seems like he changed overnight. This loving and caring father kind of turned into a monster, and that's not fair at all. Hopefully all this works out for you and you're able to find some kind of stability in your life, because based on what you described, it really seems like you're happier in the house you live in. And hopefully things flourish for you and you're able to find some kind of peace. An entitled drunk jerk becomes physically aggressive and absolutely belligerent after he and his party don't get their meals for free, all because they had to wait a while for their food to come out. Things escalate from there, where this guy starts destroying things in the restaurant in a fit of drunken rage, eventually leading to the cops getting called and this entitled jerk getting arrested. And I've honestly never seen anything so crazy in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things off with a bit of a backstory, I work at a steakhouse in a busy downtown area. It is the kind of place that hosts a lot of business parties, and rehearsal dinners, or even just large celebrations, we have fine wines, and it's usually about $100 per person on average. We also have Wagyu steaks, so I think you get the idea. Now, thankfully, the table and the incident that happened wasn't mine, but I was there and working the night that this occurred, so I figured that this story deserves to be told. There was a large birthday party scheduled for one of our private rooms. Originally, it was contracted for 15 people with a $1,500 minimum, but only 7 people showed up on time. And even though our policy requires half the party to be on time, we made an exception and even lowered the minimum to $1,300 when 2 people couldn't show up. So, around 45 minutes after their contracted start time, 13 people had arrived for the evening. A few showed up pre-drunk, since our restaurant is close to a lot of walk-in bars, but so far nobody was belligerent. Well, or so we thought. From the beginning, the servers, management, even the support staff all knew that this party was going to be problematic. All separate drink bills, trying to order off the menu, and being generally drunk with an attitude. I mean, their contract only allowed a few pre-selected options, but they should have known, considering somebody had to sign the paperwork when planning this out. They were antagonistic with their servers and with each other. Eventually, they got settled and ordered their food, and things seemed to calm down for a little bit. Other than being a handful and already drunk, they got through their salad course with no problem. The kitchen took about 40 minutes to complete their entrees, which is normal for a large party like this, but people were starting to get angry because they were so hungry. Someone tried to go into the kitchen themselves to figure out what was going on and nearly slipped and fell on the kitchen tiles before they were removed from the back. I think somebody else might have also puked in the bathroom, but that could have been another guest or just a rumor. But honestly, once the entrees came out, everything started to go downhill very quickly. These people couldn't remember what they ordered, they were upset that their steaks were the incorrect temperature, and some were demanding they be packed up to go, all because we had taken too long. Now, as a side note, the steaks were correct by restaurant standards, and the kitchen confirmed that the steaks were at the right temperature. Now, keep in mind, even though they started 45 minutes late, their contract was for 3 hours. They had another 45 minutes after the entrees at least. Their servers did the best they could, but 2 people can only satisfy 13 individual demands so quickly, and they split another couple tables that also needed help. Once their anger escalated, our front of house manager went to talk with them, just to try and smooth things over, and try and assist with the service in general. But the organizer absolutely blew up at her. The front of house manager is a small woman, maybe about 5'6" in general, and being screamed at by a very large, very drunk grown man who was getting in her face with very aggressive body language, honestly could probably shake up just about anybody. The front of house manager normally takes absolutely no garbage from anybody and will not hesitate to remove a very problematic guest, but most of the party was still there, and he was particularly very physically imposing. So I respect her courage for staying in that situation and preventing things from getting physical. However, the drunk jerk had no intention of de-escalating. When the front of house manager refused to comp the bill, stating that she'd be happy to recook incorrect entrees and pack up any leftover food if they promised to wait outside the restaurant, this entitled drunk jerk very quickly turned around and pulled the tablecloth off the table like some awful magic trick. Now here's the thing, almost all the dishes and many of the entrees and the sides were all still on the table. Glasses and place settings still on the table as well. I mean, one of the tables fell over and tore the carpet, as well as getting stained by cocktails and wines. The crash that we heard was so loud and it seriously scared me, and it was right about here that the front of house called the police. Now thankfully, because we are in a busy entertainment district, we have a dedicated police department literally next door. They were here in less than 2 minutes to handcuff the guy and escort everybody out of the restaurant. This entitled jerk was charged with felony vandalism, public intoxication, and assault. When he signed the contract, he put a credit card on file, so he was charged the full amount before any comps and later billed for the damages. I was in shock that somebody could behave like this, and never in my professional job or in my real life have I ever heard of somebody going this crazy and becoming this unhinged. Now, for the servers taking care of the table, it was very traumatizing and a harrowing experience for them. But honestly, at least we all can laugh about it in hindsight. I don't think anybody working there had ever seen something so crazy, and I would not have believed it myself had I not seen the damage firsthand. Wow, that is seriously a scary situation. First of all, these people were completely out of line. They clearly pre-gamed this entire situation situation and decided, yeah, let's get drunk before we get drunk. That's a good idea. And for the type of restaurant that this place clearly seems to be, it really seems like this is a fancy sit-down restaurant where you have to literally sign a contract just to show up. Like, this is serious business. They need to show up on time and show some respect. Like, the way they were acting before even showing up to the restaurant and just getting drunk ahead of time and completely wasted, that was so inappropriate, and there was no reason to do that. And I'm willing to bet that they probably knew the kind of people they were when they were under the influence. Like, I'm really not convinced that this is an isolated incident or anything like that, because from the sounds of it, these people kind of suck. And it's so unfortunate that the servers and everyone at this restaurant had to deal with their childish behavior. So honestly, good for the front of house manager for calling the police and putting this guy in his place. According to the original poster, with all things considered, especially with the bill and the damages, this guy paid a little over $2,300, including the bill for the night and all of the damages. And hopefully, after having this awful experience, you never have to deal with anybody like that ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled neighbor leaves a note on my car every single week, complaining because I'm parking my car in front of their house, despite the fact that I have every right to do so. And I'm simply so annoyed because I get a note from them every single week. Here's what happened. So I live in an apartment building with no parking, so I have no choice but to park on the street. My street also has a school on it that prohibits parking on its side from Monday through Friday all the way until 6 p.m. The other side of the street has 2-hour parking even for permit holders, so in total there's about 7 spots on my block where permit holders can leave their cars. And also the entire area is permit parking only, which I thankfully have. Now, because of this, I can never get a spot on my block, and I have to park 1 block down, which is still in the same permit zone. This area is all houses, and each one has a driveway. I typically don't use my car every day, but never go without it for long stretches until I'm traveling. It's also a parking violation here to leave your car in one spot for longer than 72 hours, which apparently some people take very seriously. Recently, one of my neighbors has been leaving a note on my car every single week. This is not an exaggeration too, by the way. I've gotten 4 notes in the last 4 weeks citing the above parking code, even if my car has only been there for less than 2 days. The note always says that I can't leave my car in one spot for multiple days, even though technically I have 72 hours. I always ignore the note because even if I do get reported, which I'm sure I have been at this point, someone from the city comes out the next day for an inspection and then monitors the vehicle for the next 72 hours to see if it's still there. This law is really to prevent abandoned vehicles, not for people getting upset about cars parked in front of their houses for multiple days. The hilarious part about this is that the note goes on to say how disrespectful it is to your neighbors just to leave your cars parked in front of their houses. But then again, constantly leaving notes on cars is totally respectful, right? I mean, this has been going on for months, but this was the first time I got 4 notes in a row. And right now I'm going for the high score. I know it's a law, and I rarely leave my car parked in one spot for longer than 3 days, never more than a week unless I'm traveling, in which case I just leave it at the office to avoid street sweeping. Also, my car isn't old, dirty, or looks abandoned. This entitled neighbor in question just simply has nothing better to do with their life. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. You can tell that they're just a busybody, and they clearly want to get up in other people's business. They're acting as if you abandoned your car, even though you're not doing that, and you have every right to sit it there for what, 3 days at least? They just don't like the fact that anyone's parking in front of their house. They probably have this weird entitlement about who parks in front of their house, and they probably think they own that spot in front of it. But newsflash, entitled neighbor, you don't own anything on the street. The original poster has every right to park there, and hopefully one of these days you catch them in the act, and you're able to give them a piece of your mind. Today, I messed up by accusing my boyfriend of cheating when he goes out to California next week. But once I found out he was actually visiting a fallen soldier he used to know, I'm now completely heartbroken, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I've been dating my boyfriend for a little under a year now. We moved in together into a small house near his hometown, and recently he told me of a yearly tradition that he does. He goes to California on the same date every year for a few days. I asked what for, and he suddenly changed the subject by inviting me, but I had work that week, so I declined. I knew he was a former Marine and was stationed over there, so I just assumed it was to visit some old Marine buddies or just for the nostalgia or something like that. The problem came into play when a few days later he was cooking and had his phone on the charger in the the other room that I was in, I saw he got a text from a name that I didn't know. It was locked behind the screen, and I'm a little ashamed to admit this, but I figured out his password a while ago without him knowing. It wasn't a sinister plot or anything like that. He's just very predictable. Now, before you call me a jerk for snooping around on his phone, I've had bad relationships before where I thought I trusted a man with all my heart only to then be cheated on. So my worries got the best of me and I started snooping. The text message told my boyfriend to bring cases of a beer that was a preferred brand of a woman that I'd never heard of. This immediately set off alarm bells in my head. Why would he be bringing a girl's favorite beer on a vacation that he refuses to tell me about? I closed his phone and pretended that I didn't see it. I went to some work friends for advice and all three of them convinced me it was a romantic getaway and he was blatantly cheating on me. After that, my anxiety flares up and I was a complete mess. I thought he was the one, while also thinking, how could he do this to me? So I went home early, deciding to have this big dramatic confrontation. I wanted to yell and scream at him, but I had read a lot of these stories online before, so I felt I had a plan to ease into it and catch him in a corner. I came home and he was in the backyard fixing a fallen fence post. I asked him to come inside and he told me he would be there in a second. I then told him in a stern voice to come right now. I heard him drop the wood plank and start running inside. He must have assumed I was hurt or something like that because he got inside and asked me what was wrong. And the following conversation went something like this. I looked at him and I said, I know you're cheating on me. He just looked at me dumbfounded and started to chuckle a bit, assuming it was a joke of some kind. I then started crying and just breaking down, and it was then that he realized I was serious. So he then came over trying to comfort me, but I swatted him away. He looked genuinely hurt and just backed up a bit. He then asked me, what gave you the idea that I'm cheating on you? I then said to him, look, I know about the girl that you're getting beer for. You're going to go see her next week, aren't you? He then said that yes, he is seeing her next week, which completely broke me. He just admitted to it. So when he said that, I started crying even harder. He then reached into his wallet, pulled out a picture and showed it to me. He said, that's the person I'm seeing next week. And then he said the name that I thought belonged to a woman, but instead it actually belonged to a man. I was completely wrong. The picture was of my boyfriend and another man, both in uniform and armor, one arm wrapped around each other's shoulder, and both their other hands were holding a rifle. I knew this picture. I saw it in a memorial post from a friend of my boyfriend. He passed away while they were in the military together. I realized what I did, and all I could do was sob even more. We were both on the kitchen floor, and I'm sobbing my eyes out, and he's trying his best to hold me together while explaining that he goes back to the base every year to clean a memorial cross and drop a six-pack of beer for his friend. And all the while, I'm just apologizing in between sobs. It's been 2 days, and I can tell it affected him, but he simply won't admit it. He is a very stoic guy and doesn't speak about his emotions, and has always prioritized other people over himself. He insists that he's fine and he's sorry he wasn't more clear about his trip, but I know my boyfriend. If he was really okay, he'd be cracking jokes and being a witty jerk by now, but he's not doing any of that. I've tried talking about it with him, but he always finds ways to shut me down or shift the conversation politely. I desperately want to fix this because I feel awful. I have some vacation days saved up, so I could take them on short notice and go with him to show my support, but I'm afraid he would take that as a lack of trust. I don't want to lose the man I love just because I jump to conclusions. He knows about my past and understands my feelings. He's always tried to accommodate me, and I think this was the first time that he didn't tell me exactly where and why he was going when I asked him. Just like I understand his feelings. I mean, I don't surprise him. I let him know when I come home. I comfort him when he wakes up from his nighttime terrors. We both have things in our past that the both of us have tried to help each other work through, but I don't want to sound like I'm trying to justify my lack of trust. He gave me everything, and I couldn't even give him my trust in this one moment. Yeah, that's a massive mess up. Seriously, talk about missing all the clues that no, he is not cheating. First of all, if he was really cheating on you, why on earth would he invite you to come along? He literally said, hey, come with me to California. It's gonna be fun. Do you really think he would invite you on this trip if he was actively cheating on you with someone he was going to see? You would then potentially see this person as well. Instead of asking him about the person's name who you snooped around and saw, you decided, ooh, I'm gonna catch you in a corner. Like, that was unbelievably toxic, and there was no reason for that. And sure, I get it, you were cheated on previously, but for you to jump to a conclusion like this and try and pin this on your boyfriend when he definitely didn't do anything, not to mention all the other accommodations that he actively makes takes to make you feel comfortable really does make you a massive jerk in this situation. And sure, you thought the name belonged to a woman, and it might be one of those ambiguous names that can be used for a man or a woman, but honestly, the way you went about doing this was incredibly awful. The first thing you said when he came into the house was, "Oh, I know you're cheating." You didn't ask him what he was doing in California. You didn't try and get more information about what was happening. You just jumped right into accusing him, all because of an awful situation that you made up in your head. Also, you really should ditch your friends. Your friends almost ruin your relationship. They literally convince you, "Oh man, he's definitely cheating." And instead of talking to, your boyfriend about it, you believed your idiotic friends who clearly don't know what they're talking about. And so here you are on the kitchen floor crying about this, and he's the one that has to comfort you, despite the fact that you probably really hurt his feelings. I mean, with the way you acted and the accusation you so willingly placed upon him, I don't blame your boyfriend for trying to change the subject. Like, you can't be the person who makes the accusation and then play the victim when you get called out and proven wrong. So yes, I think this was a massive mess up on your part, and hopefully you never do anything like this again, because your boyfriend does not deserve this. And if you had just asked him honestly about what happened, this literally all could have been avoided. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my boyfriend after he finished off an entire tub of sour cream in one day? Here's what happened. So first off, I want to say that I feel absolutely ridiculous posting this here, but I am literally crying about this, and I'm wondering if I'm crazy overreacting. As with everyone in the United States, grocery prices in my area are astronomical, and I've had to completely change the way I budget for food. I have to be aware of every penny I spend in order to get the most of my money when it comes to the food. Every week I have a grocery budget. I plan out all my meals, as well as what I get for the week and what we have. I do not do extra grocery runs during the week unless it's absolutely necessary, and this will be important later on. My boyfriend pays for about 30% of the groceries, and I pay about 70% because he pays more for utilities, so it kind of evens out in the end. However, I always tell him if he wants additional food or anything like that, or maybe he's still hungry or something along those lines, then he himself can go and get it for himself. Also, keep in mind we are not portion restricted. Well, I bought a standard size tub of sour cream, and it was supposed to be used in 3 different meals that week, and I told him this ahead of time. Well, I came home today ready to make dinner, and it was gone. Not even used for one of the meals that I had planned. He just snacked on it throughout the day, and admittedly, I blew up and started crying, asking him why he would do that when he knows that I was supposed to use it for several meals. I try so hard to budget and save money, and I feel like he just doesn't care in the slightest. I told him he can either buy a new tub of sour cream or I'm not cooking for the rest of the week. I told him it's a matter of respect, but he thinks it's no big deal, and I can just go get a new tub if I really want it. And he is now making a point of saying I should be the one to get it instead of him, despite the fact that he's the one that ate it all. He says I'm being dramatic for crying over sour cream, and I know it's not super expensive. It's like, what, $3 in my area? But honestly, it's about the principle of the matter. I'm just so upset that he can't respect what I'm trying to do. And honestly, this is not about the sour cream. It's simply about being disrespected. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Your boyfriend is being a massive jerk right now. There is no reason for him to talk to you like that in the slightest. First and foremost, in my opinion, this absolutely falls on him. He should be the one to get up off of his butt and go to the store and replace the sour cream that he ate in one day. Like, this guy seriously just plowed through the entire tub of sour cream. Like, why would he do that? He knows you're very particular about your grocery shopping. He has to know at this point that you have a grocery budget, that you plan out your entire week very meticulously so that you can properly budget what you are and are not going to eat throughout the week. So for him to just take away one of your key ingredients like that seriously can mess up the entire week for you. And no, I don't think you're being overdramatic at all. You're already stressed out of your mind trying to pinch every penny that you have, and then he comes along and completely disrespects that process. Like, you spent so much time planning this out and really trying to understand what you want to eat for the week. You had a solid game plan going, and then your boyfriend comes in and just ruins the entire thing. And then when he's confronted about it, he acts like it's your fault and it's something that you should take care of. And that is honestly mind-blowing to me. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your boyfriend is being irrational and so immature. If he really cared, he would go and get the $3 tub of sour cream and just replace it like an adult. But instead, he's acting like a child. And that, in my opinion, is so unfortunate. My daughter secretly withdrew $10,000 from her college account just so she could go on vacation and visit a celebrity. And now, because of her decision, I'm considering closing closing that college account completely, thus denying her the opportunity to even go to college. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my daughter is 17 and applying for colleges. We have a college fund saved up for her that we've been adding to since she was an infant. It's a good sizable chunk of money, and a lot of donations from family have gone into it, as well as her own savings occasionally. We have always made it clear that the money is there for college only. She never had to put her savings in there, but she did so anyways. Now, her girlfriend lives in Australia, and they are both insanely big Supernatural fans. They have both wanted to go to a convention for years, at least 5 that I can remember. 2 of the main guys are going to be at a convention in Australia. She begged me to let her go, but I said no. But also, the convention is set for after the 18th. I told her that I can't stop her if she pays for it herself. And I honestly assumed that she would use her savings, but boy was I wrong. I checked the college account to add some money in there, and I noticed a huge chunk of money was missing. I went to speak to my daughter about it, and she admitted to using the money to pay for the convention. She bought herself plane tickets, her girlfriend plane tickets, as well as both of their convention tickets and the booking of a hotel. The convention is 3 or 4 days, but she's planning on staying for a couple of weeks, thus making it a complete vacation. All in all, she literally took out $10,000. Now, at this point, honestly, I lost it. I demanded that she cancel the trip, but that fell on deaf ears. I tried to cancel for her, but she would not be refunded for everything, so I'm hesitant to do so. She's insisting that it's her money and she can do what she likes with it. She claims that she still has enough for college, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Now, I believe this has shown her extreme immaturity and inability to manage her future and her money. I am so incredibly angry that she would go and do this behind my back. So I told her that she can say goodbye to the rest of her college fund, and I have now locked the account. Currently, I'm the only person with access, and she says that she'll pay it back, but honestly, it really seems unlikely. My wife thinks I'm being harsh and that she's right. My daughter did put about $5,000 into the account herself, so she only took out about $5,000, which my mother-in-law has since said that she'll pay back. But I think that this just teaches her that she can pay her way out of any kind of mess. Now, I was certain in my decision, but everyone is acting like I'm the jerk. She's a teenage girl, and her entire life shouldn't revolve around college. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? First of all, I want to say that I completely understand where you're coming from. This college fund was just for that. It was so that she could go to college. And it's not like she didn't know that ahead of time. I mean, she herself has put a lot of money into this account already. So the fact that she would go behind your back and take money out just to go on this stupid trip to Australia, all without talking to you ahead of time and at the expense of her college account, makes this entire situation so uncalled for. And I do completely agree with the original poster here. This was a completely irrational decision, and this really does not look good in terms of her managing her future money. But with that all in mind, with all the mistakes that the daughter absolutely made, I really think it would be a bad idea to deny her that money just so she can get to college. That money was set aside specifically for that. Just because she took money out doesn't mean that she can't learn from her mistake and do better in the future. I do think it's smart that you locked it down. This way she can never try and take money out of it ever again, and you can now set up some kind of payment plan so she can pay back the $5,000 that she owes to this account. And I think you definitely need to set up some checks and balances to make sure that she can't withdraw any other funds in the first place up until college. So yes, she is absolutely in the wrong for doing what she did, but I personally think it would be a bad idea to act really irrational right now. I think that it would be an awful decision to suddenly say, okay, now you can't go to college. That will honestly not serve your daughter well, and that is only going to do more harm than it will do good. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My sisters treat me like garbage, all because I only got married for money. And now, because of an argument and some of the awful things they've said about me, I decided to back out of a family vacation, thus forcing it to be canceled altogether. And now I'm being called a jerk, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, let me start this off by saying that I'm married for money. My husband is with me for appearances, and we are happy with our arrangement. My husband and I married because I have all the qualifications to please his family, and he takes financial care of me. We are very fond of each other and even love each other, but not in the classical marriage sense. We are like amazing roommates with some benefits. He and I are free to live our lives independently and without any kind of stress. He is not worried about being being cut off from his family, and I am finally financially stable and am free to work my job that simply is not as economically beneficial. But here's where the problem comes in. My sisters have never approved of my decision. They say I sold myself, which I mean is kind of fair, but still, we used to be civil with each other. Last week we had a family barbecue and I went without my husband. Everything was going great until my oldest niece, who's about 21, sat down next to me and we started talking. And then she asked me a question straight up. She wanted to know if I was with my husband for money. I explained to her how we met, as well as our agreement and so on. She then asked me if I think it would be okay for her to pretend to be her gay best friend's girlfriend. I told her it was up to her to decide, and if there were no negatives to it, like her having actual feelings for him, or someone getting hurt like a romantic partner or something like that. Overall, it was a lovely talk. Well, strike two of the situation was apparently when my other nieces asked me where my husband was and I told them. I said that he was on vacation. They asked me why I didn't go with him, and I said that we only sometimes go together on vacations. We usually take little trips together, but go on longer vacations with friends or family. This niece, who's 16, asked me if it was true about what her mom and aunt said about me being a gold digger, and I just said, well, I guess so. Like, honestly, that just doesn't faze me anymore. I know my sisters constantly talk about me behind my back, and I am not ashamed about my marriage at all, so I see no need to lie. Later that night, my sisters cornered me, and we had a fight about my words and my nieces. They said it was completely inappropriate about what I told them. They said that I'm free to mess up my life, but that I shouldn't let my nieces think that it's okay to do what I did. I called them small-minded, and that I was only answering my nieces' questions, and I was even honest with them. They are free to make their own decisions after all. My sisters kept cornering me, calling me all sorts of names and saying I'm basically influencing their daughters in a negative way, all because I'm apparently miserable. I then made some comments right back at them, and then I left, not talking to them for the whole week. Now, there's a huge fallout because I pulled out of the family vacation because of this fight. And here's the kicker. The vacation would have been at my husband's summer house. And as I'm not going, my husband doesn't feel comfortable lending my family the house. My family has now been calling me a massive jerk, and my sister said that I was blowing things out of proportion. So honestly, am I the jerk for getting the family vacation canceled? What should I do? This honestly is a crazy scenario. It's really weird to hear that somebody would be like, yeah, I married my husband for money, and then the husband to make some kind of similar statement, basically claiming that his wife is just a good cover so his family won't reject him. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody actually saying that out loud, so this honestly really did surprise me. But with all things considered, this is your life. You can do whatever you want, and if that means you marry someone all because you want to be financially stable, then I mean, I guess you can go ahead and do that. I mean, clearly it's working for you. I personally can't imagine living that kind of life moving forward, but hey, that's just me. But when it comes to the way your family treats you, I don't think they're being completely fair. It sounds like you try your best to be honest with those around you, and you are completely upfront about your life and why you married the man that you did. And with that in mind, it's honestly really unfortunate that your sisters feel the need to try and gang up on you. That's really unfortunate, and honestly, it kind of seems like it's a bunch of sour grapes. Like they're just mad because your husband is rich. That's honestly all I'm seeing here. And with that in mind, I honestly don't blame you for cutting contact for an entire week. They've been treating you like garbage. They're not respecting your boundaries, and they're completely getting bent out of shape over the dumbest things. But with that in mind, their actions absolutely deserve to have consequences. They said horrible things about you. So the fact that they would really get upset because they can't use your husband's summer home for some kind of vacation anymore is honestly comical. They're basically saying, oh, you're just gonna have to deal with the things we say about you, but also guess what? We get to use your husband's summer house, thanks. Like, no, that is not what's gonna happen here. What's gonna happen is because you offended the original poster, they're gonna back out of the family trip because why would they show up? Just to get yelled at by their sisters again? That seriously doesn't sound like a good time, and it's not something I would want to deal with in the slightest. So in my opinion, with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you had every right to stand up for yourself, as well as backing out of that vacation. Because if they really wanted to use your husband's summer house, then they should have treated you better. 5 entitled Karens tried to block my view while my wife and I were on a Royal Caribbean vacation, but I decided I wasn't taking that sitting down. So as a result, I had them removed from the location, and I've never felt better about getting back at some entitled Karens in my life. Here's what happened. So I just got back from a 3-day cruise that only went to Royal Caribbean's private island. The island is called Coco Cay, which they now refer to as Perfect Day. They have pools, a ton of water slides, little beach coves, and a lot of other things. Knowing that we just wanted to enjoy the beach, several months before the cruise departed, we booked a daybed as they were more reasonable than the cabanas and offered almost just as much for the money. The daybeds can be reserved, and depending on when you reserve them, you're going to be able to get a better location. Each daybed comes with 2 lounge chairs and an umbrella that is directly in front of the daybed. They are located adjacent to a large section of lounge chairs and umbrellas that are available on a first-come, first-served basis. If you get off the ship right when you're first able to at about 8 o'clock, then you are likely going to get a better location. All the chairs and daybeds are aligned in nice, neat rows and are meant to stay where they are. We got off the ship about 15 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we were pleasantly surprised when we arrived to our designated section of the island. It had been so long since I reserved the daybed that I had forgotten that we had gotten one of the first rows, thus ensuring unobstructed views of the beautiful Caribbean waters. At this time, this little enclave was sparsely populated, and we were one of the only few groups of people there. The front row of the lounge chairs had already started to fill up though. An hour or so goes by, and we're hanging out in the water when I see 2 older women pull their designated lounge chairs down from the 3rd row of the daybed section right in front of the 1st row of the daybeds. I'm immediately asking myself where in the world these ladies get off, thinking that this is somehow okay. And then I thought back to what I've read on the internet, and right here on full display, I'm seeing some entitled Karens in the wild. Within 15 minutes or so, it seems like their actions have given the same idea to an even older group of 3 women who pull their chairs from the large section of first-come, first-served lounges and pull up next to the first 2 ladies, now obstructing the views of nearly the entire first row of daybeds. All 5 of these women had a very northeastern part of the US way about them between their distinctive look and their accents, and honestly, that was way more than what I was willing to tolerate. I paid for and planned enough in advance to have a first row view, and I wasn't about to let these entitled jerks insert themselves into that picture. Thankfully, the daybeds have a concierge who is there to assist with these matters and was incredibly helpful in ensuring that the laws of this society were being upheld. Now, of course, these women were all completely shocked that anyone would have an issue with what they did, and they refused to go take their chairs back to where they dragged them from. I guess because they were such a high degree of Karen, they got the concierge to allow them to obstruct the views of the people in the first row of lounge chairs who had gotten there early to ensure unimpeded views. They then proceeded to yell all around us about how they hoped that whoever it was that complained was just so happy to have their views back. And since they said that, you know what? Yes, I am very happy that they're out of the way. I did feel bad for the people in the first row of lounge chairs who then had the unfortunate result of having these jerks in between them and the Caribbean. My wife asked me why I couldn't just let it go, and I explained it to her like this. Look, if I bought first row seats to a football game and then someone else who bought standing row only seats came and stood in the aisles in front of my seats, I'd want them to move to the section designated for standing room only tickets. And honestly, I feel the exact same way when it comes to these entitled Karens. Wow, that is really unfortunate. First of all, the concierge absolutely should have made them move those chairs back. Whoever it is that allowed that is a complete pushover, and they seriously need to be trained better. Like, these Karens and their actions were completely unfair. They're blocking the view of people who actually took the time to reserve their spots. And then they have the audacity to act like, oh wow, I can't believe you did this to me. I hope you're happy now. Like, seriously, a lot of people paid a lot of money just to be here, let alone to try and reserve a spot on this beach. Like, that was probably a lot of money just to go and enjoy this trip. So in my opinion, I would have done the exact same thing. If someone was obstructing my view and causing me to have a negative experience, then I absolutely would want that taken care of. An awful student keeps trying to push the boundaries of what I will and will not allow inside of my classroom. So I decided to get some revenge after his latest stunt, essentially marking him as psychologically distressed, forcing him to meet with a school psychologist. Here's what happened. So I'm a high school teacher, and I taught, among other subjects, politics at my previous school. We were briefed over and over again to be on the lookout for any sign that a student might be in psychological distress. While I do understand that it is a part of my job, I was always shaking my head in disbelief, especially when we were given the list of possible symptoms. It was stuff like mood swings, irritability, lack of interest in school, underperformance and changes in interests, etc. Since I work with teenagers, that list applies to about 90% of them, so obviously that list wasn't any help. At the same time, I had a very provocative student who was 2 grades behind and who was also smug as you could possibly be. He would always spend an unnerving amount of his potential trying to push his teacher's boundaries and see how far he could go. Luckily though, I'm not that easy to anger, anger, and always try not to play into this student's hand by doing exactly what they want me to do. So if I notice that somebody tries to anger me, I give my best to speak even more calmly. When I was grading a test in politics, I noticed that he had not filled out a question, probably because he was once more oblivious to the answer. Instead, he had used his time during the test to draw a little sketch made of stick figures. One stick figure, labeled as me, had its hand on a lever up on the risen platform with a gallows. The stick figure with the head in the noose was labeled with his own name. At the feet of the gallows, the rest of the class was protesting, with signs that said stop or don't do it. I thought about what comment I might write next to it. That is, until I remember the training we were given over and over again. Obviously, this student was in distress, so I contacted the school psychologist and mentioned the disquieting sketch on the test. 2 days later, during my lesson, there was a knock on my door, and it was indeed the school counselor who came to get the student in question for psychological assessment. And trust me when I say this, the sour look this student gave me when he came back was honestly marvelous. That is a really funny way to get revenge on a bad student. This student sounds like somebody who easily could do more with their life if they really wanted to, and they could probably catch up in grades and probably graduate on time, but instead they spend all their time trying to push boundaries and act like a complete moron. And I'm willing to bet that this was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I'm sure the original poster dealt with this student for a long time. They probably had daily encounters with this person, and they were constantly having to navigate their awful behavior. So hopefully this sends a clear message that no, they can't do that anymore. Otherwise, they're only going to find themselves in the counselor's office again. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for refusing to lend money to my friend after her terrible history of spending money that she blatantly doesn't have? Here's what happened. So first of all, I need your help settling a debate between me and my friend. Here's the situation. My friend, let's call her Sarah, that's not her real name, recently asked me to lend her a significant amount of money. Now, before jumping to conclusions, let me first provide some context. Sarah and I have been friends for years, and we've always supported each other through thick and thin. However, over the past few months, Sarah has been making some questionable financial decisions. She's been splurging on unnecessary luxury items and going on extravagant vacations without any regard for her mounting debts. When Sarah approached me for a loan, I was taken aback by the audacity of her request. I mean, it's not like she needed the money for an emergency or something like that, and it wasn't anything urgent. She simply wanted it to fund another lavish vacation. As someone who values financial responsibility and saving for the future, I couldn't bring myself to support such reckless behavior. I politely declined her request and explained my reasons behind it. I told her that lending money would only enable her irresponsible spending habits and that it wouldn't be fair to me or our friendship in the long run. Instead, I suggested that she should focus on managing her existing debts and reevaluating her spending habits. However, Sarah did not take my refusal well at all. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive during a time when she needed help the most. She argued that as a good friend, I should be willing to lend a helping hand regardless of the circumstances. Now, here's where things get really tricky. Some mutual friends have taken Sarah's side in this argument. They believe that since we've always been there for each other in times of need before, I should extend my support this time as well. But am I really being selfish here? Shouldn't friendship also involve holding each other accountable for our actions? It feels unfair that just because we've helped each other in the past somehow means that we're obligated to do so indefinitely without considering the consequences. I genuinely care about Sarah's well-being, and I do want what's best for her in the long run, but enabling her reckless spending habits doesn't seem like the right way to go about doing this. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, it really seems like Sarah is just trying to use you for money. Like, instead of saving up and trying to have some kind of vacation on her own dime, she wants to go to you and be like, hey, give me some money. And if you don't, guess what? I'm gonna try and guilt trip you. That's all I'm hearing right now. Her, as well as your friends, are just trying to guilt trip you into paying for Sarah's vacation. And you know what? The things that your friends said are absolute garbage. Sarah is not in any kind of need right now. Anyone who claims that she is completely delusional. She isn't desperate for money because she's afraid she's gonna get evicted or anything like that. She's not on the verge of financial ruin. She just wants to go on a lavish vacation. And she thought to herself, okay, maybe I can ask the original poster to give me some money. That way I can have the vacation that I want. And honestly, that's exactly what I think is happening. She spends her money needlessly, and then she comes to you you to be like, hey, can you bail me out? And that, in my opinion, is super toxic and so uncalled for. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your friend is incredibly selfish and all your other friends are completely delusional. Because I know for a fact that if I was in your situation, I would have also told Sarah that there's no way I'm giving her any money. An entitled Karen constantly calls into my place of business just to insult us whenever she has to make a payment on her account. And after dealing with this for so many months, I finally had enough, deciding to fight fire with fire and show this Karen exactly how toxic she truly is. Here's what happened. I used to work customer service for an insurance brokerage, and now I manage a customer service team, and I am in charge of client retention as well. So I don't receive calls anymore and only make a few, but this specific client is honestly one of the worst. It's one where I always have to call her back after one of her little tantrums. So this entitled Karen has made it very clear from the first interaction that I had with her almost 2 years ago that she's very unhappy with our service as well as our fees. Which, by the way, she knew about all of our fees and services available ever since she signed the dotted line. And trust me, she had so much she had to read. She always calls us to make her payments. She always complains about the fee. We always let her know she can call the carrier directly or set up an auto pay to avoid these fees. And her response every time is to say the following:
"Why on earth would I do that if you're supposed to be my agent? I don't need to be doing that."
So whenever I have to call her, I would just let her vent and curse for a while, and then in my calmest customer service voice, I would say to her, okay, whenever you're ready, you can give me the card number. She always says that when she opened her policy with us, the one agent who sold it to her would explain all of her renewals for her at the office. But now that ever since he started working from home, it's just been an issue left and right. I've always asked him about this entitled Karen, since she'd call back saying that she wanted to cancel her policy, you know, to see if he would give her a call to re-quote her with a different carrier, as well as to find out if he could find anything cheaper for her. He just saw the name and said, no, I know who that is, she's always like that, and I've re-quoted her several times. There is literally no other carriers for her. She's insulted virtually everyone in the agency and has been the first person to earn the title of rude client pinned straight to her file. She calls and insults whoever gets the call, and on the next one complains and lies about how she was treated by the last person. We keep recordings of all of our calls, so I know for a fact that she is lying. We also have a 5-star rating on Google as well as our Yelp reviews. Most of our new business is from referrals, so she's really the only one who has a problem with us. Well, the other day, the entitled Karen called, but the person who took her call was having technical difficulties. He couldn't hear her much and wasn't sure if she could hear him as well. So he repeated a few times, "Ma'am, I don't know if you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. I'm gonna hang up the call now and call you back." And then he hung up the call. And honestly, this is where things really started to pop off. So after he hung up the phone, he got a call as soon as he did, and he had to pick it up. And when he was done with that, the entitled Karen in question was already calling again. He picked up the phone and immediately she was just insulting him, not letting him speak and not even saying what she needed help with. Then she hung up the phone on him. This representative, let's call him James, that's not his real name, called me immediately to explain what had just happened and test his line at the same time. It was indeed having some issues, so he ended up having to reboot his router and computer. So I called this Karen back, since she was clearly upset, and well, I mean, I had to do my job with client retention, right? When she picked up and I said my name, she immediately started cussing while also saying no one ever treated her so badly as James just did. She said she already knew who I was since we've spoken several times before, and that she wanted corporate to do something about James. She said to me,
"James should be fired. You need to be more careful about who you have working for you."
I tried to explain to her the situation at hand and that he was indeed having issues with his line, but she said that it was a lie
and that he acted as if he was doing me a favor by taking my call when it's actually his job.
I then told her that I had personally listened to the call recording, that we take complaints very seriously, and so on and so on. But she said that she didn't care. She stated that she knew this was being recorded and then proceeded to say as many curse words as she could think of, as if she was going off of a list.
She then said she wanted corporate to hear that because she was so angry.
Then this woman did something that honestly stunned me. I mean, she seriously had no shame. She told me that she was customer service before and now quality control, so she could tell when someone was being unprofessional. But I mean, this lady is clearly out of line. Like, I have quite literally gotten emails from her business email insulting me in the process, with her automatic automatic signature set up to say, "Respectfully Karen, Customer Relations." Like, how is that professional? To use your company email like that, and the signature with the actual body of the emails is honestly hilarious. These emails that she sent to me, by the way, in the past, I always get them after she makes a payment with us. She complains that we didn't send her the receipts when I can literally see they are attached to the email that we sent her. I just resend them and I say to her, "You can find both the carrier receipt and the service fee receipt attached on the previous email, but I have also attached them here for your convenience." Anyways, after all of this, I spoke with the owner. She listened to my calls and James and said that she'd send Karen an email with the recordings so she can hear herself being so rude. Well, ever since then, we haven't heard back from her in a while, but I'm sure this Karen will come out of hiding and this saga will absolutely continue. That Karen is absolutely obnoxious. Who calls in just to start insulting people instead of setting up, I don't know, auto pay of some kind? Like, seriously, she wants to sit there and go through some kind of call center just to make her payment every month for whatever service she has? Like, that lady must be really bored, or she's clearly looking for trouble. This must clearly be her only chance to get out all of her frustrations in life, because this behavior is so unbelievable. So in my opinion, good for the original poster and the way that they handled this. They really did stay calm in the face of an awful storm. And hopefully for the sake of you and all of your coworkers, you never have to deal with this Karen ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled bosses treat me like garbage and refuse to pay me after I say that I'm leaving to go to another company. So I decided to get some revenge, and as a result, I make their life a living nightmare even after I left the company. Here's what happened. So I was an in-house lawyer for a multinational company that sold software. I specifically joined this relatively lesser-known company to learn more about compliance. The stock was listed on the stock exchange, meaning more compliance work that needed to be done. And I highlighted this specifically as one of the reasons for my seeking out a change. But I quickly discovered that it was filled with senior citizens when I joined. Basically, it was a company full of old-timers who are there purely because they're close to the company's owners. As part of the onboarding experience, I had to sit through sermons of how they changed the industry and how they know this, that, or the other. This meant I had 3 different bosses. One senior guy who was the fixer, I'll call him senior number 1 for convenience, and no one really knew what he did, but he got a cabin to himself. Another was an ex-senior management guy who got a gig from the owner to negotiate tech contracts. This will be senior guy number 2. I highlight this because this ex-senior management guy actually asked me what an EULA was, and an EULA stands for End User License Agreement. Another guy was my reporting manager, with whom I was expecting to work on a day-to-day basis with, and this is senior guy number 3. So anyways, 1 month after joining, I was told that the company was going private through a sale to another entity, and honestly, I was shocked, but I had loans to pay, so I continued working there. For some reason, I was senior enough for them to handle this independently. This meant that I worked through the night to complete tasks that a law firm would ordinarily do. I also worked on the definitive agreement that was in use for the company to be sold. And trust me, this will be important later on. By the 3rd month, I had decided the role wasn't what was advertised, and I was essentially cheap labor. The buyers were from another city and planned to have their office there. Now, I was not keen on moving, so I basically read between the lines and I started lining up interviews. Well, things went south very quickly. The old-timers were unhappy that I was looking for a job because that would mean they have to answer to the owners, or even worse, they would then have to do the job themselves. And once they started to persecute me a lot more, it really solidified my resolve to leave this company. All of my complaints about senior guy number 1 and 2, all to senior guy number 3, were met with typical management talk. He sympathized and badmouthed them for burdening the company that he tolerates only because they are closer to the owner. Senior guy number 2 even started countering all of my remarks and comments, and these were all drafted up in an email. I mean, even minor agreement points required discussions, but if it was his mistake, then we had a call. However, if senior guy number 2 raised the point, it suddenly made commercial sense. This wasn't my first rodeo, and I really didn't care about proving a point because I wanted out as soon as possible. Any pushback or fights are just going to be left on deaf ears, because from where I am, labor laws are at best recommendations unless you're unionized. The only option really is to leave. I was so angry and tired of being pushed over, but I wondered if it was just me angry at the whole situation and finding faults. But I had an opportunity to test my theory. angry. So in one of the contracts that we were drafting, I made some comments and sent them over to senior guy number 2. As expected, he countered with verbal suggestions on the phone, which didn't make any sense obviously. But however, because he is senior, I had to do the song and dance to explain the points. So I arranged the call, explained to him and documented this on email, attributing each verbal recommendation, as well as the time of the call and the decision suggested by him. Then I sent this back to him for approval. However, this time I also sent that email to my boss, who's senior guy number 3, and asked for his approval on recommendations. Surprisingly, this practice was entirely new to them. Both of them were incredibly angry with me. Senior guy number 2 and 3 were not happy. Senior guy 2 was being questioned for the first time in email, and senior guy number 3 couldn't ignore my email as the head of my department. Unsurprisingly, I got a single line non-answer from senior guy number 3, basically asking me to discuss this with senior guy number 2, followed by a verbally heated instruction to just do what senior guy number 2 wants and not bother him. Now, I was sure that this wasn't going to work for me in the short term or in the long term, so I resigned and gave my notice period of 1 month. Senior guy number 3 was really mad because he thought the notice period was for 3 months and the sale of company was expected to close in 1 to 2 months. And then, as you would expect from any toxic work environment, especially right after you decide to resign, I was treated like absolute garbage for the entire month that I was still there. On the last working day, I walked up to senior guy number 3's cabin and did the courteous communication of simply saying thank you. He basically told me that I'm picking a huge fight and he will make sure that I never get employed in the industry ever again. He also told me that he is not going to pay me my full and final settlement of dues and a relieving letter, which, by the way, from where I'm from in India, that is a huge deal to get for your next job. Employers hold off on these as blackmail for troublesome employees. His tone implied that there is very little I could do because they were all senior guys and they've apparently been there and done that. I mean, I wasn't the first disgruntled employee for him. So I said my goodbyes, I got the IT department to confirm that I had returned the company assets, and I forwarded my personal email. However, I was furious as well at the whole ordeal and had made up my mind not to show this on my resume. And it's honestly right about here that my revenge really started to take place. For starters, once I left, I spoke with my friend and decided to serve a legal notice, detailing the ordeal and all the treatment sent towards me. Ordinarily, the legal notice barely makes a difference as the management is usually thick-skinned about it. However, the legal notice was also sent to the owners, not just the company. This wasn't really required, but I did it anyways. It turns out many directors were absolutely angry at senior guys number 1, 2, and 3, but they decided to remain quiet about it, just trying to wait and sell this company out. My act of involving the owners meant the entire board got involved, including outside directors. This turned into a festival of explanations by all 3 in front of the owners. From what I hear, they all had to personally take leave to meet the owners themselves and explain themselves as naughty children in front of their parents. Needless to say, everyone in the company was talking about that incident. I waited for 1 month to see if the notice had any effect aside from them being chewed out like children. Expectedly, I got no response, but I knew from the grapevine that they now had to spend money on a law firm to reply to me because shareholders were aware of this information. I had made my point by now, but I wanted more. I really didn't want to drag it because I was also looking for jobs and I had loans to pay. However, their template management response basically implied that since I had left without notice, they were evaluating all options, including considering me AWOL. Senior guy number 2 basically said to me that he will not pay me my dues or my relieving letter, and implied that there is very little that I can do about it. So, being the petty person that I am, I made plans to get both. Now, since I had access to the definitive agreement and remembered huge details about it, having worked with law firms through the agreement in detail, I was also aware of who stays and goes, and I made sure to speak to those who were being let go. And because of my involvement, this caused mass resignations in the company, with several deadlines being missed. I also knew the specific approvals that would trigger because of the transaction, so I spoke to the authority who would approve this transaction as a disgruntled employee. The authority made their own inquiries. The owners got spooked, and it was definitely not serious enough to scare them into thinking that the deal won't get approved, but the mere fact that a government authority was calling them meant that they now had to deal with the authority, which also would have never happened if it wasn't for me. Now, as a result, the buyer used this as a low-value bargaining chip, citing bad employee experience and resignation of of several key members on key projects. And also, because I was calling around and basically getting the authorities on them, I got my dues and relieving letter all within 48 hours of doing that. The company got gossip for years on how the management was dumb enough to mess with a lawyer, including a sermon from the owners on how we shouldn't upset employees when they are trying to sell the company. Senior guy number 1 and 2 were left red-faced but ended up surviving because of old ties. However, their contracts were not renewed. But honestly, it felt so nice to get revenge and throw these scumbags right under the bus. That is honestly a great way to get back at these people. I mean, after all the work that you did for that company and all the things that you tried to do, despite the fact that these guys were being really lazy and just didn't want to do their job, with all of that in consideration, they seriously were going to be like, oh, we're not going to pay you. Also, we're not going to give you a good letter. See you later. Like, that is messed up. And I know if I was in that situation, I wouldn't know what to do. But thankfully, this original poster is a lawyer. They are not someone you want to mess with. And honestly, these senior guys bit off more than they could chew. Now, the original poster does go on to say that the revenge he got is pretty tame in comparison to what you might read online. But trust me, these guys were sweating. The second you started complaining, all of their sins were brought to light and they had nowhere to hide. That, in my opinion, is the best way to get back at people like this. You hold their feet to the fire and you hit them where it hurts. And that's exactly what you did. You brought all of their horrible treatment and all of their threats right to the light, and you made them explain themselves to the owner and the outside directors. Not to mention the fact that they had to go to the shareholders just to explain why they were acting the way that they were. I can only imagine how embarrassed they probably were, and honestly, with all things considered, they completely deserved it. Like, they were not going to pay you for your time at that company. They were also not going to give you a good letter moving forward to your new company. That is such a scumbag thing to do, and people like that absolutely should be put in their place. So you know what? Good for you for getting that kind of revenge. These guys absolutely had it coming, and I really think that if you decided to stay quiet, then they would probably never get punished for the things that they did. Am I the jerk for lending money to a friend all without asking my wife first? Here's what happened. Okay, so we've been married for 5 years and we have a son who's 4 years old and a daughter who's 2 years old. We currently live in a very nice place. I bought this house from my uncle before we started dating, and my parents paid for most of it. We are close to virtually everything important, like 2 multi-specialist hospitals and schools, some colleges, malls, theaters, and subways, which are literally a maximum of 15 minutes away from our house. So as you can see from my description, we don't need a new house. But my wife thinks the problem is that there are too many old people here. My wife told me that she feels old here because there are so many old people living around us. Most of the people here are rich 40 to 50-year-old couples who have retired to find some peace. For reference, I'm 33 years old and my wife is 29. Now, I don't mind because when I first shifted here, our neighbors literally treated me like their son. So I really don't want to leave this place. 2 years after our marriage, my wife insisted I buy a new house. Now, I refused because her idea was to sell this house and buy a new one. But I told her that I wasn't going to sell this place at any cost. She must have seen how firm I was and didn't want to bring up the subject again. But after our daughter was born, she said we should at least save some money for the future, with her primary idea being that we would move to the center of the city. And it's right then that I realized that she didn't move on from wanting a new house. But it's not bad to save money, so I agreed. Now, it is worth noting to her that we both work, but my salary is a little more than double hers, so I made major contributions to that savings. Anyways, a couple of days ago, my friend asked me for some money. I didn't have that much on me, so I lent him from our savings. I then told my wife as soon as I got home, and she got so angry and asked me why I lent him money from the savings. I told her the reason, but she was still so angry. She said to me, "How can I trust someone blindly if he doesn't return the money?" I said that I knew him way longer than her. I mean, we literally went to school together, and his entire family, even his cousins, knew me as well. She then said to me, "Well, why didn't you ask me first?" I said that it wouldn't have made a difference because I contributed the most, and we are not in need of a new house immediately, so I would have lent him the money either way. She then started crying and went into our room, and now she has not talked to me since. Now, I know I might have said some rude things, but honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for lending out money from our savings to my friend all without asking my wife? What should I do? Yeah, that's a really messed up thing to do. First and foremost, I absolutely think that you are the jerk in this situation. You took money that belongs to both you and your wife, and you gave it to your friend under the assumption that he would pay you back. You literally took money away from your wife, and any hope
hope of her finding another place to live. And here's the thing, your wife's opinion absolutely matters. If she doesn't want to live there, then maybe you should try and get off your high horse and try and see where she's coming from here. Like, she's clearly unhappy, and that money meant a lot to her in terms of, I don't know, saving up to get another house. But also beyond all of that, beyond her not wanting to live where she's at or anything like that, honestly, the fact that you did this without talking to her is so toxic. There is no good excuse for this. That is money that's meant for the both of you, and in my opinion, you absolutely should have talked to her first. Like, seriously, think about it. How would you feel if she took all of that money and decided to send it off to somebody else that you didn't know? Like, I'm pretty sure you would be angry and questioning pretty much everything going on. So I really don't think you should be surprised why your wife is getting upset about this. So yes, I think you're the jerk here, and you really need to make this right. Either set up some kind of like high payment plan with this friend, or try and go back on this deal and be like, sorry, I need the money back. Because making this decision with that money without talking to her first is honestly really toxic, and there's no excuse for the way you acted. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content we're putting out here, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell to turn on notifications. We love you guys so much. You guys are awesome, and we will see you in the next video.